Chapter 666, Soul Burst. Chapter 666, Soul Burst. Proofreader, Papatonks. Young Master Han, your next opponent shall be me. I won't be like the two you faced, and won't hold back at all. Please be ready. Wuxia walked before Han Yunfeng with a leisurely gait, bearing a twisted smile. Glaring at him lightly, Han Yunfeng said, I know. These days have shown me that you are the foulest person of all demon scheming sect, ha ha ha. You're asking for it. Wuxia's face fell, a bone-chilling bloodthirst flashing in his eyes. Then his body shook, and a huge green spider appeared in front. The green gas it released spread along the ground like a poisonous net. Han Yunfeng's brow shook and turned serious. He'd seen Wuxia use this move before, with Mystical Heaven Sect, to cut the enemy off from all directions. In other words, Wuxia planned on surrounding him instead of attacking him head-on, to finish in one move. In this way, he became passive, making his plan to save energy fail here. He was sure this would become a stalling battle to wear him out instead. If it were just a single fight, this wouldn't matter. But in a round-robin, he could not let this happen. Qi Changlong couldn't help but sigh. Why is Wuxia doing this? For young Master Han to fight all 6 of us is incredibly brave. Even if we are not exactly honorable, there's no reason to take it so far. You know as well his character. It's obvious one strike can win this. It's easy to win or give him a pass, but he would rather toy with him. Bai Lian scoffed. He plans on dragging this on, something Han Yunfeng could never accept. Qi Changlong sighed and shook his head. Meanwhile, Han Yunfeng looked around the spreading poison, and with a roar, the ascending howling lion flapped its wings. The fierce gale slammed into the ground, turning the area around him into sparkling blue ice crystals. It was then that the spreading poison stopped. The moment the green gas touched the crystals, it would stop in its tracks. Han Yunfeng shouted, and ascending howling lion shot for the green spider, going all out once more. Humph, useless. I'm not going to take you head-on. Wuxia snickered and made a sign. The green spider scattered like before into thick mist. The thousands upon thousands of tiny spiders raced for Han Yunfeng under the cover of the mist. Whoosh! Ascending howling lion strike hit nothing, but it turned back and went straight for Wuxia. Ignoring the incoming flood of spiders, he actually opted to go down with his enemy. Han Yunfeng is truly ruthless. Meeting someone like Wuxia who wants to exhaust him, he instead stakes his life, going all out. Wu Qingqiu sighed. Yan Mo nodded. The kid's obsessed and I like it. I hope to see him in the Double Dragon manner. For a person from middle 3 sects and just a second layer of ethereal stage as well, it will be hard to enter Double Dragon manner. It's all up to the exalted. Yan Mo and Wu Qingqiu turned to the highest seats in the audience, where the exalted Saturday. Wuxia looked at the lion with a smug grin. Ha ha ha. The more anxious you are to end this, the more you'll tire. Wuxia made another sign, and lines of green flashed all over the lion. Just like a net, those lines connected and trapped it. At the same time, the green pattern on the ground released green smoke, connecting to the net. Roar. With a mighty roar, the lion found it could not advance at all, stuck in place. Grinning, Wuxia gave Han Yunfeng a cocky look. Young Master Han, it's your bad luck to have met me. Do you know how a spider feeds? It traps its prey in a web, letting it struggle and beg for death, then slowly eats it alive. This is quite a lengthy process too. You were rash for a quick battle, but then you got me. Hi. Humph, that remains to be seen if your net is that tough. Han Yunfeng made a sign as his brow sweated harder. The lion roared as it struggled, and it trembled. Uncaring about the lion's actions, Wuxia grinned. Poison explosion. Boom. The lion's body kept popping with great bangs sounding through the air. Han Yunfeng shook with every blow, and even coughed up crimson blood. Brothers! Third young Master Han and second young Master Han cried out in panic. The flying lion was Han Yunfeng's soul. Its wounds meant Han Yunfeng's soul wounds. It was such a heavy and sharp pain few could endure. The two gnashed their teeth and looked at Wuxia in hatred. But Wuxia only laughed. Young Master Han, you're Demon Soul Sect's eldest young master, so I can't take your life, but you should know when to give. It's time for you to admit your defeat to me. This is as far as you go. Han Yunfeng was Demon Soul Sect's young sect leader, and defeating him would give him great merit back at the sect. Wuxia was blinded by greed, so he did not follow in Qi Changlong and Bai Lian's footsteps in fighting head-on. Victory and merit were worth more than anything. He would be willing to do anything as long as it would help his ascent. Han Yunfeng's face twitched in pain, but he actually mocked Wuxia. Kid, you're not worthy. We'll just see about that. Wuxia's face fell, and his sign changed. The thousands of tiny spiders charged for Han Yunfeng, but they froze in place when they touched the blue curtain of light. Just then, Wuxia shouted, and the tiny spiders exploded, breaking through the blue curtain and allowing the spiders behind them to advance. Han Yunfeng was now at his most dangerous. With a string of constant explosions, the barrier of light shrank more and more until it was gone. Wuxia trapped his flying lion, and explosions also assaulted it. He was stuck, unable to neither attack nor defend. Han Yunfeng's face was heavy, feeling the sharp pain stinging his soul. He paled, and Wuxia grinned as he changed his signs. The spiders drew nearer with every step, every second, and with them, Wuxia's web closed around him. Everyone, including the audience, was at the edge of their seats for Han Yunfeng's fate. Third young Master Han shouted, "Brother, just give up. You defeated 2 experts and are weary. It's no loss even if you concede. This isn't about reputation, but whether I can walk further on the path of cultivation." Han Yunfeng's eyelids shook, looking in Zhuo Fan's direction. His eyes flashed and roared as his aura exploded once more. "Brothers!" His brothers cried out in worry. "What's he up to?" Wu Qingqiu was startled, having a bad feeling. Soul burst. Han Yunfeng made a sign. The trapped flying lion wailed in pain, and then exploded. Streams of blue light shot in all directions like a tidal wave. Everywhere and everything froze under a layer of blue crystals. Those spiders were about to explode again, but they froze immediately before shattering to dust. Wuxia spat blood, looking at the light show slowly diminishing. Followed by a roar, a lion without wings burst out and came for him. The sudden impact caught Wuxia off guard, knocking him flying, trailing blood behind him. This was not as light as before, with just his soul a little bit shaken up. This time his entire innards were crushed, and there was a high chance his body was ruined. However, the people did not care about him, not even demon-scheming sex members. In their eyes, there was a lion that had lost its wings, and despite its thin state, it held its pride as it lay on the ground. Chapter 667. Man on the Path. Chapter 667. Man on the Path. Proofreader, Papatonks. Young Master Han, why did you do that? Watching the weak and frail lion lying on the ground since it struck Wuxia, when Tao shook his head, "If I had known you were so obstinate, I wouldn't have said what I had. Seeing you fall in such a plight feels like I harmed you myself." Xie Tianshang's eyes shook as he stared at the scene for a long time before sighing. "I had spent my life only on martial arts, yet not even that can compare to Han Yunfeng's accomplishment. Soul burst, a desperate and last move to injure your opponent by exploding your soul. Unless it is the last resort, no one would ever use it, not when the recovery is painstakingly difficult." Even though Han Yunfeng had blown up his soul's wings, the damage to his soul is heavy and has also crippled his future. Putting the cart before the horse. Yan Emo watched from above with a sullen look. He was angry, but not at the result, and more about his inability to fight. Didn't he challenge Zhuo Fan so he could go further down the path of cultivation? Now that his soul is crippled, what was the point? Wu Qingqiu nodded, lamenting at the pity. Only Yilin disdained, looking at the lion in admiration. "What do you ignorant youngsters know? The soul is important, but the damage isn't permanent, just somewhat annoying. If my guess is right, Double Dragon Manor, Zhuofan, and even me can all heal him. But the step he had taken today shall carry him for miles. The road of cultivation is fraught with obstacles. If one knows every effort was useless and stopped, that is as far as he went. But he has achieved his goal just because he chose to stake his life in this matter despite the obvious outcome. Even if he didn't get to fight with Zhuofan, his heart has grown to new bounds. The two squinted, watching Yilin in shock. Are soul wounds that meager anyone can heal? Double Dragon Manor, I get it, since they're the top in Western lands, but even you and Zhuofan are such miracle workers? Yilin noticed their gazes, but said nothing.
Tap.
As the dust cleared, Han Yunfeng dragged his even more weary body, looking with a pale face at the bloody Wuxia on the ground. I won. This is the third match. Wuxia gnashed his teeth and found he could not get up. All that was left was the regret in his eyes. He would never have imagined Han Yunfeng would go to such extremes. I just said I didn't want your life, so why did you have to go as far as wound your soul to win? Lunatic, you're a true madman. At Wuxia's unreconciled face, Han Yunfeng grinned. Then he turned to Demon Scheming Sect, the next challenger. Brother, his two younger brothers shook, wanting to dissuade him. But seeing his determined look, they gave up. They knew that once their big brother was serious about something, there was no changing his mind. Demon Scheming Sect's team's hearts shook and looked from the frail lion to the weary Han Yunfeng. They held him in much more respect than before. Han Yunfeng would never achieve his goal, yet he fought regardless of the futility of his efforts. It was this determination that won them over. It wasn't just them. The entire audience was filled with respect. Gui Hu walked forward. It's my turn. Please instruct me. Good, begin. Han Yunfeng strained to keep his body upright as he shouted. His lion also struggled to stand, roaring toward Gui Hu. Despite how exhausted he was, his battle spirit never waned. Gui Hu said nothing as he walked to Han Yunfeng. Second young Master Han was tense, worried about his big brother's fate. Han Yunfeng fixed him in his eyes. He knew well that there was no way he could fight an ethereal stage expert in the state he was in. But what amazed him was that Gui Hu had no killing intent, as if he was only walking over. Han Yunfeng frowned and snapped. What's the meaning of this? Are you saying you can take me with just a finger? Gui Hu did not reply. As he reached him, under the watch of thousands of pairs of eyes, Gui Hu took Han Yunfeng's fist, struck his own chest with it 3 times, and then walked away. Startled, Han Yunfeng was stumped. The audience was baffled. At this time, Kui Lang laughed as he came over, copying Gui Hu by hitting his chest with Han Yunfeng's fist for 3 punches. My turn, Kui Lang swaggered off. Hey, what's the meaning of this?
Han Yunfeng asked.
Yuling smirked and came over. What's so hard to understand? You just beat them, so the next one took their place. Aren't you challenging 6 ethereal stage experts? I'm the last one. Wait, you're... Han Yunfeng had a weird taste in his mouth. Stop whining. It's just your fist, Yuling got before him and was about to do the same, but then she realized something. She looked at her perky chest and blushed, then waved. Never mind. I'm the weakest of the 6. Since you beat the rest, I'll just admit defeat. Yuling left with a wave as she gracefully walked away. Han Yunfeng was left stumped, his heart filled with complex emotions. Gui Hu, what the hell are you guys playing at? Zhuofan chuckled. Gui Hu shrugged. Steward Zhua, you saw it yourself. I took 3 fists of his and lost. Yep, me too. Kui Lang bobbed his head. Zhuofan shook his head. 3 fists to the chest? Are you guys swearing an oath of brotherhood here? Since you all admit defeat, it seems I'll have to step in. Zhuofan stepped lightly, coming before Han Yunfeng. His eyes lit up with battle intent. I've waited so long for this. I always keep my word. Since you reached me, you have the right to hang out. Go ahead. Zhuofan smiled. Han Yunfeng cupped his hands in glee and began weaving signs. Seeing their big brother shine again, the two younger brothers were filled with pride. They also sent grateful looks to Gue, Hu, and the others. Thank you, brothers. Just showing our respect is all. Since your brother wants to fight Steward Zhua with such passion, the least we can do is help out a little. Gue, whose gang hit their chest in reply. However, just then, there was a light hum and a flash of light. The judge's aged voice came from outside. The 6 hours are up. Both sides cease fighting and come out. If you fight again, I'll consider it a grudge fight. What? Han Yunfeng shook and was unwilling. How can it be so fast? Then his eyes went dark and collapsed. Zhua Fan's right sprung into action. But then he moved it back and used the left one instead to hold him steady. Brother Han will fight next time. Han Yunfeng shuddered and turned his white face to Zhua Fan. You'll still fight me? Of course, this is my promise. Since this time we can't, there's always next time. Zhua Fan spoke with determination. Han Yunfeng's perked into a smile and his eyes closed. He was out cold. His soul, the lion, also vanished back into his body. Holding Han Yunfeng's body, Zhua Fan was the first to go through the light. The two sex teams exchanged glances and followed after. Only Lu Xia, in his heavily wounded state, had to be carried out by Qi Changlong.
Whoosh.
The teams were back in the arena and were welcomed by a resounding round of applauses. Unlike the first challenge against Heaven Trailing Sect, the Demon Scheming Sect still held their absolute advantage, but they had a complete attitude change. Instead of abusing their opponent, they showed respect, bar a particular someone, of course. This led to everyone having a whole new respect for Demon Scheming Sect. After looking at both sects, the judge coughed for silence and was about to announce the results when Zhua Fan stepped forward. Elder, 10 people went into similar dimension, and 10 have returned. Both sides have one seriously injured member. It should be a draw. Well, the judge was taken aback and nodded. Since you are willing to step back, I will help you. This challenge is a draw. This statement left the crowd in shock, all looking at Zhua Fan. Reason dictated that Demon Scheming Sect held the ultimate advantage and was the real winner. But Zhua Fan was willing to give up victory and give his opponent the greatest respect. In an instant, the people were in awe of Zhua Fan's style, and the Han brothers appreciated him too. Exalted He ran, up above, nodded. The brat is walking the path, a true rarity. Few demonic cultivators have ever risen above their demonic nature.
True.
However, it's not just him. Ha 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 has also grown. Ha 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 exalted by Mei chuckled and added another name to the list in 3 strong characters. Chapter 668. Hand in the Shadow. Chapter 668. Hand in the Shadow. Proofreader, Papatonks. With dusk approaching, the judge declared today's fight over. The middle 3 sex challenge round had been going on for a long time, with each stage taking 6 hours each. The next challenge stage shall be held tomorrow. The judge ended with a bitter look in Zhua Fan's direction. As if to say, it's all your fault, you punk, for wasting our time. A whole day was wasted with just 6 single matches and 1 team battle in this yet unfinished middle 3 sex challenge round. Now you need 2 days for just 3 rounds? Why do you take your sweet time with it every time you're involved? First was the lower 3 sex round, now the middle 3 sex challenge round. Do you enjoy playing that much? Can't you go on a bit faster, so I can lay to rest these weary bones a bit earlier? Zhua Fan chuckled, as if he knew what he was thinking. But then he turned his head away and rolled his eyes like it was not his problem. The judge sighed and shook his head. Just how on earth did such an obnoxious freak come from the tiny Demon Scheming Sect, a lower 3 sect? After everyone dispersed, Zhua Fan handed Han Yunfeng over to Demon Soul Sect with the promise that he would also heal his injuries before leaving. The Demon Soul Sect still doubted that such a heavy injury could even be healed. The guy isn't trying to dupe us, is he? Then again, tricking them wouldn't earn him anything. Their elder brother's wound was self-inflicted as he insisted on going on with the challenge. The Double Dragon Gathering used to be a cruel and bloody event. The fact they didn't wipe us out is already fortunate. What more could we ask? Therefore, Demon Soul Sect's team looked at the frail Hanyan foam, thinking of his future bumpy path ahead of him, and sighed. The best talent in our sect, ruined just like that. Middle three sects. Meanwhile, Fiend Young took his team back, shouting all the time, filled with joy and bliss from the achievement. Fiend Young then felt like crying. Curses, it was freaking hard too. Thinking back on our team in the last Double Dragon gathering, of the 10 of us, only 4 returned home. I never thought this time our disciples would come back in one piece, and even earn us a middle 3 sect position. It feels like I'm still dreaming. I'm so damn happy. Humph, how can it ever compare to now? Fiend Ian sneered. Double Dragon gathering requires a team of 10 to participate. Back then, most of those candidates were just replacements for the elders, and Venerables stuck their candidates in to earn them some merits. They weren't worth a damn on the stage. Unlike this time, where we only had 10, each is an elite by himself. Especially Zhuofan, who is worth 100. Thinking of the team battle, he alone could finish them all off, ha ha ha. Slapping Zhuofan's shoulder hard, Fiendine laughed, but Zhuofan kept frowning and cursing on the inside. Hey, watch the hand, my right's still healing. Though he didn't say it, putting on a twitching smile and nodding. Fiend Gui praised as well. Here, on this Double Dragon gathering, Zhuofan had earned the biggest credit. Without him, the disciples wouldn't have the strength to even fight. They wouldn't have what it takes to raise our sect's name. We even have the middle 3 sects and superior 3 sects coming to watch us. So when we return, the first thing we do is to reward Zhuofan. He is the future pillar of our demon scheming sect, haha. You're talking nonsense. Isn't it obvious by now? Fiend Yang sneered. Our position in the middle 3 sects is secured, and we even challenged 2 middle 3 sections. Even if it's just team battles, it will certainly not drag us back when it comes to the final score. Speaking of drag, I'm still annoyed that damn Mystical Heavens sect played us. Alright, it's all in the past now. Our objective is how to keep challenging. Fiend Ian interrupted him. Fiend Yang gave a heavy nod, turning serious. The previous challenges were nothing to speak of, just small fries, while the next 4 sects are the real deal. Especially the top of middle 3 sects, the Sword God sect. Their strength is very close to a superior 3 sects. We must tread carefully. Venerable sirs, sorry to interrupt. However, just as they were getting to the crux of it, a faint voice broke their focus. Before we discuss the fighting tomorrow, could you perhaps heal me first? I feel my body is failing me. Whoosh. Startled, the fiends turned around and saw Wuxia's weary look, lying on the ground with a miserable face like he was on his deathbed. Fiend Yang's face twitched as he cursed. You have the cheek to ask for help? What kind of brain do you have crammed in there to do what you did? You went as far as pushing the hard-headed Hanyan Feng to risk his life. Just look at Kuei Lang and the others. They know a hero when they see one. Their actions have spurred the public's respect for us and given Demon Scheming Sect a new look. While all you managed to do is get both of you on the deathbed, no one spares a look to you. You were seriously asking for it. Let me tell you, even if you did manage to beat him, it wouldn't have been of any worth. You'd only be reviled. Thanks to Zhuofan's final intervention, he patched up your mess. By the way, why would you even go so hard in blocking him anyway? Did you think he could have beaten Zhuofan? It's fine. He just couldn't help it and got his punishment. Fiend Yang still wanted to go on, but Zhuofan stopped him with a smile. Kuei Lang and the other are the same as Hanyan Feng. They have potential, which resonated with him. Unlike the petty Wuxia, who squabbles over petty affairs and can never understand such bravery. Just leave him be. At the end of it all, he's one of ours and shouldn't bother him. Fiend Yang huffed and shook his head. Zhuofan, I'm not talking about his character, but his brains. Originally, the demonic path wasn't popular, but now that we're a middle 3 sect, we may even get an entire empire for ourselves. The Double Dragon Gathering is the best chance to show off our mettle. But with his behavior, won't he scare off our potential funders? We may be a demonic sect, but we still have principles. unlike those rogue demonic cultivators. Here, here. We collect protection fees while those rogues only know to rob homes. Ha ha ha, Zhuofan chuckled. Wuxia didn't like what he heard. Then back with heaven trailing sect, Steward Zhua asking us to toy with them isn't just as vile. For God's sake, here I am, taking your side, and you just had to make me look bad. He emphasized it with 2 kicks and grumbling. I did it on purpose. Everything was for power and grace. Since we wanted people to see us have virtues, we had to also show them we're no pushovers. This will help future deals go much easier in our favor. It's called preemptive strike, got it? Hear that? Steward Zhua is a brilliant man, not something a pig-headed guy like you could ever measure up to. You'll only make a fool of yourself. Fiend Yang cursed at the side, then turned to Zhuofan. Sigh. We better teach this kid well, or who knows what trouble he might stir. No worries, I'll first heal him then teach him. Hee. Zhuofan snickered as he dragged Wuxia into his room. The rest looked on and chuckled. Bam. In the room, Zhuofan threw Wuxia on the bed, closed the door shut, then his face fell. Wuxia, what was that just now? Were you about to spill the beans about Han Yunfeng as well? As Steward Zhua, I just don't understand why you suddenly sent me a message to stall Han Yunfeng as much as I could. Why then do you now? Wuxia spoke fearfully. Zhuofan squinted and held his right hand. You did well when you stalled him, but if you dare say any word of this, I'd never. Wuxia waved frantically. You'd better. Now stop asking questions. Zhuofan huffed and presented a vial in a flash of light. He threw it over.
Take this.
Don't come out in 3 days. You'll be back in shape. You don't have to join tomorrow's challenge. Just heal up. Zhuofan then walked out and slammed the door closed behind him. Wuxia bobbed his head. But when Zhuofan was gone, he gnashed his teeth. He stared at the door with bitter resentment. Damn you, Zhuofan. You're the one working from the shadows, and while I take the fall, you take the glory. You get the merit and I get the can. Just you wait. This is far from over. Wuxia turned to the vial Zhuofan threw and opened it after a moment of thought. This is just the interest of what you owe me. Zhuofan just left Wuxia's room and then looked around. He returned to his room and took off his shirt. Looking at his right hand, still bleeding, he gritted his teeth and frowned. Damn that fiendine, he's like a bull. But what's with this healing rate? Just a little touch, and it's already opened up again. It's all thanks to Wuxia's stalling, or my wound would have been exposed the minute I fought. Squinting, Zhuofan snickered to himself like a little weasel after his plan worked perfectly. Chapter 669, Danqing Shen's Purpose. Chapter 669, Danqing Shen's Purpose. Proofreader, Papatonks. Ha ha ha, I see. I was wondering why you were so odd before. When you switched to using your left instead of your right, it turned out it was wounded. A sudden old chuckle pierced Zhuofan's ears, making him shiver. He swished a shocked face around but only found an old drunkard. It looked as if he had been in Zhuofan's room from the start, taking his sweet time gulping down wine and looking at him with a penetrative sneer. His brow shook, and Zhuofan cried, as senior, how did you get in? What? Ain't I welcome? Danqing Shen's face looked a little savage as he said, I've told you already, there's nowhere on these lands I cannot go. No one can stop me. Zhuofan's face stiffened, and he let out a strained laugh. Haha, yeah. You do me a great honor seeing me, senior. You light my home with your presence. How could little old me ever refuse you? It's just that senior's sudden appearance caught me by surprise. TCH, quite slick, I see. Who'll ever believe your smooth talk? Danqing Shen sneered, then his cruel eyes snapped on the bleeding right hand. You must be most annoyed this old man found out your secret. Speechless for a moment, Zhuofan's eyes spun all over the place, but then he chuckled as he strained to deny it. Senior, how can you say that? How could a little old and average Radiant Stage disciple ever hide something from so many experts? Senior must be joking, ha ha ha. Even with the forced laughter, Zhou Fan made sure to hide his wounded right back in his clothes. Spare me your lies. Dan Qingxun's face went cold, his piercing eyes staring right at him as he questioned. Boy, tell the truth. Who gave you that wound? Flicking his eyes around, Zhou Fan waved him off. Isn't it obvious? Having fought so many times, injuries are common. Sir also knows I am a tough man, not going to let a flesh wound bother me, so I endured it. Since Sir has found me out, then I am most grateful for your concern. Cut the crap.
Don't you play dumb with me.
I'm not buying it. Dan Qingxun's face twitched and snorted. I've seen your recent fights, and you think I don't know who you've been fighting? They couldn't even scratch you, let alone hurt you. Moreover, that wound is a through and through, clearly made by sword energy. Talk. Where did you run off to? Heart tensing, Zhou Fan gave the old man a look. He clearly knew everything despite questioning him, so all he could do was admit it. Senior, you're so astute, and I can't hide anything. I was curious, explored someplace, and got this little scratch for my troubles. Boy, you sure are deceitful. Using your teammates that were toying with heaven-trailing sect, you sneaked away to check out the sacred mine. Not even the exalted double dragons figured you out. Boy, your plan was brilliant. Haha, you're too kind, Senior. Did it not fail to pull the wool over Senior's brilliant eyes? Zhou Fan grinned at Dan Qingxun, flattering him whenever he could. The way he saw it, since Dan Qingxun had left Double Dragon Manor ages ago, he came to him after finding him out. It was a clear sign the old man wanted to negotiate something. So, Zhou Fan was working to lighten the mood and see what he wanted. Sparing him a glance, Dan Qingxun sneered. Easy on the flattery, boy. I needed one look and knew something was off about the show you pulled on heaven-trailing sect. Why did each disciple go after their prey and then return to that valley? All except you. Why were you so late for the show? Then there was the fight with Demon Soul sect. It was clear from your demeanor that there was something with your right hand, though just a hunch. Now that I see it myself, it all became clear. You got guts, boy. The sacred mine is Double Dragon Manor's territory, yet you dare go in? Talk, who sent you? What is their purpose? Dan Qingxun barked. Zhou Fan shrugged, muttering for a bit. Senior, you're only fussing over trifles. No one sent me. I didn't even know there'd be a sacred mine in that place. I just felt that spiritual energy was incredibly thick when I entered. So curiosity got the best of me, and I went to check it out. I never thought it would lead to such a careless mistake and got wounded. Careless, you say? Who are you trying to fool? Dan Qingxun mocked. The sacred mines aren't important just for Double Dragon Manor, but the entire Western lands. While the mine's interference prevented an array from being set up, thousands of monitoring arrays existed before it. There's no way you could have bypassed them without inside help. And not just you. Even I, a former Double Dragon Manor disciple, have no idea where they've changed those monitoring arrays' positions. And just touching one of them will instantly get the two old coots on you. It may look like light protection when in fact, it's at the highest. It's like casting thousands of eyes on that place, taking in your every movement. Zhou Fan's brow shook. So the monitoring arrays were placed by the Exalted in person. He had just skirted the two old guys' traps under their noses. Zhou Fan sighed. That was close. How fortunate I'm an array master, and a good one enough not to run into any of them. Glancing over, Dan Qingxun resumed the inquiry talk. Why did you come here? Who's your contact in the Double Dragon Manor? Senior, I won't lie to you. I was just curious and took a look. That's all. Zhou Fan chuckled. As for those monitoring arrays, I just had to read the terrain and energy flow to find them out. I always stepped in their blind spot, going in and out without a sign. I had no devious ploy at all. Dan Qingxun's heart shook, looking at Zhou Fan in shock and doubt. Those were set up by the Exalted themselves and hidden very well. Yet you saw them at a glance? Senior, my low cultivation might not show it, but I'm a 10th grade array master. Also, this is just what I can do now. If we discuss insights and theories in arrays, my accomplishments are way higher. Rolling his eyes, Zhuo Fan's face was solemn. I was a little nervous about when the two exalted might find me in the short time I had, or I could have just broken them, you know? Dan Qingxin looked at him, filled with skepticism. He did not believe him at first. The two exalted set them up themselves and you, a snot-nosed brat, up and said you could break them? Even talent has limits. However, Zhuo Fan's confidence was too genuine to write it off as acting. Seeing hesitation play on his face, Zhuo Fan broke his thoughts with a smile. Senior, what do you need of me? How can I be of help? Boy, you've been caught messing around. Now you want to drag me into it too? Ha ha ha, Senior, you can't say that when it's you who came here for something. Now you approached me with the intent to test my limits, so how can it be all my fault? Zhuo Fan chuckled and shook his head. Dan Qingxun's eyes flashed, praising his sharp mind, but his voice was still the same. Boy, I only came to check something and not for anything else. Stop your wild guessing. Oh, Senior, you're really haha. Can't you be a little frank with me? Zhuo Fan shook his head, annoyed. Senior, you're not part of Double Dragon Manor. Since you found my secret trip to the sacred mine, you had no reason to come and question me. Yet you came nevertheless. For you to keep asking me about my contact only means you have two purposes. One, you still care about Double Dragon Manor and want to protect it by removing the danger, though that could have been easily done by dropping a hint about my actions. That leaves the second purpose for yourself, to eavesdrop. I think this one has a higher probability. Because that is your purpose, you need an insider who knows the ins and out of the current Double Dragon Manor. Didn't you say it yourself that you've been gone for ages? Eyeing Zhuo Fan, Dan Qingxun's beard shook. He chuckled and shook his head. You're one little freak, you know that? You saw through me down to the last detail. No wonder in the fight with Demon Soul Sect, you let Wuxia, who has been at odds with you, step in instead of others who would have listened just the same. Because he will do a better job. Ha ha ha, when using others, one needs to consider every aspect. Wuxia is petty and untrustworthy. Though sometimes, for some things, only petty people can do them. Zhuo Fan's eyes glinted and snickered. Senior, what do you need of me?
Please tell me.
Dan Qingxun's eyes shook and he finally sighed. I want the sword that injured you. Chapter 670. Twin Soul. Chapter 670. Twin Soul. Proofreader, Papatonks. What? Zhuo Fan's eyes widened as he cried, Sacred weapon. His heart tensed, and his brow furrowed. He would never have thought Dan Qingxun's return to Double Dragon Manor was for the sacred weapon. Worse, now that the said sacred weapon was now with him. Wouldn't Telling get himself killed and robbed? No, he can't know about this at all costs. Whatever I do, I must never allow him to suspect I have it. But when he reaches the cave, he'll know I have it when it's not there. How am I going to hide the truth? God damn it. What the hell is a top expert even doing setting his sights on a sacred weapon? It's a rarity even for me, so why should I just give it up? Seeing Zhuo Fan's heavy look, Dan Qingxun was suspicious. What did you just say? Sacred weapon?
Who told you that?
When I entered the cave, I saw a very dangerous long sword with sharp spirituality that actually moved by its own will. It almost took my little life. There's no way it's the same as spiritual weapons, so in a moment of inspiration, called it a sacred weapon. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan lied through his teeth as he started blabbing. Dan Qingxun nodded like it was natural.
I see.
It's something you named it yourself. I actually thought you knew Atlas Sword's history. Atlas Sword. Zhuo Fan gasped. Dan Qingxun nodded. Yes, the Atlas Sword. The continent's 5 regions all have a sacred mine. In those sacred mines, over eons, nature itself forged a divine sword to guard them. The Western lands is this Atlas Sword, the one I want to obtain. But, having left the Western lands long ago, I had lost my right to get it through normal means. All I can do is take it by force. Dan Qingxun sighed and shook his head. That's why I hope I can get the map showing me the way to the sacred mine and obtain Atlas Sword. So that's why. Zhua Fan gave an understanding nod, though his frown deepened. But when I saw Atlas Sword, it was savage. It almost took my life, and I barely escaped. Is sir that sure that you can subdue it? Of course. Danqing Shin beamed in pride. Atlas Sword is a sacred weapon of this world, incomparable to every other sword out there. Even someone at my level would have a very hard time subduing it. It also cannot leave the sacred mine, which makes it even harder. But I grew up training with it while at Double Dragon Manor. Will reflect on each other's thoughts to the point we are one. I once had the chance to have it. With enough sacred stones in my ring, the Atlas Sword would simply follow me instead. But then you know what happened. In my rage, I destroyed 10 sects, and the Exalted sealed that area, forcing me to leave. Otherwise, I would have long since taken the sacred sword and become almighty through all the lands. Zhua Fan nodded, even as he was cooking a plan in his mind on how to dissuade the drunkard. So he said, since you didn't want it last time, why would you want it now? That's none of your business. Put in a difficult situation, Danqing Shin grumbled and stared at Zhua Fan with conviction. Boy, didn't you say you saw the way through the monitoring arrays? I don't care if it's the truth or not. I just want you to draw me a safe path, and I'll make it worth your while. Well, Zhua Fan was put on the spot, not knowing what to do. If he did that, it would be the same as sealing his fate. He could practically see Danqing Shen reaching the cave only to see it empty of no sacred stones and no sacred weapon. After a brief moment of shock, he'd go berserk. Won't he kill me in his rage? Zhua Fan felt like he was handing out the noose to string himself up. Senior, have you ever thought the sword might accept someone else before you? That's not possible.
Didn't I tell you?
The sword has a will and won't just follow anyone. Unless…
What?
Zhua Fan's eyes lit up with hope. Danqing Shen's mood darkened, unless the Exalted kept the sword distracted. Atlas Sword has been under the Exalted's care, and it would definitely listen. If they wanted to move it, it would obey. Oh, in other words, you're not the sword's true love. Zhua Fan bobbed his head and sighed inside. I can rest easy knowing there's a convenient scapegoat around. Therefore, he took out a blank jade slip, imprinted it with the right path, and then presented it to Danqing Shen. At this moment, they were in this together, with no one able to sell out the other. Danqing Shen took it and laughed. Great. Now I can do it.
Ha ha ha. Thank you, boy.
It's no trouble. Senior is a straightforward person, and I'm sure helping Senior will definitely not go unnoticed. Ha ha ha. Zhua Fan waved him off with an innocent face, even when his words had obvious implications. Danqing Shen's face twitched. I just knew that when I told you my reason, you'd try haggling with me.
Spill it, what do you want?
I'll do all I can to achieve it.
Senior, how can you say that?
I'm not petty. A mere map is nothing. Zhua Fan faked modesty. Danqing Shen rolled his eyes and mocked. Save it. With your keen mind, I could tell you're not one to lose out on anything. Now I am owing you a favor, and who knows what you'll do that'll make me have a hard time. No, I have to repay it today. Oh, then what does sir think it's an appropriate reward that can compare with a sacred weapon? Zhua Fan grinned. His smile twisted, but he never asked for anything, letting him come up with the price. This is all appealing to one's conscience. Moreover, there's no way a big shot like you would be stingy with a junior. Glaring at Zhua Fan, Danqing Shen shook his head. Boy, you're truly sharp, to make me say it so that you won't lose out at all. An old man like me can't dupe a kid either. I planned on giving you a cultivation method or martial arts, but never mind. Since you said it has to match the worth of the sword, a mere cultivation method will look like an insult. True, so very true. Zhua Fan bobbed his head, his grin ever present. He didn't care about any manuals. What could the mortal domain ever come up with that was worthy of his attention? What he wanted was a true expert's promise. Now that was the true reward. Danqing Shen pondered for a bit, then clapped. Fine then, I'll make this an exception and give you a secret art I created personally. This is sure to be enough. Danqing Shen's hand flashed, and a green jade slip rested in his palm. Zhuo Fan took it and squinted once he read, Twin Soul Art. Right, that's the one. Dan Qingshan nodded, smiling. Boy, you are so much like me back in the day, just as talented and proud. Senior, you call this a reward? Of a sort, yet also yes, because we all form our souls in the radiant stage. Dan Qingshan's eyes flashed, and he gave a vague grin. Startled, Zhuo Fan looked lost. Who'd have thought he is another one with ethereal stage power in the radiant stage? Zhuo Fan knew that the reason for the mighty power he had right now was due to the azure flame, while Dan Qingshan just relied on himself to reach it. Now that was a true genius. Dan Qingshan beamed. Boy, did you really think you're the only genius? My talent wasn't any less than yours in those days. How else do you think I surpassed my 2 masters and earned the title of the strongest in Western lands? All my success is attributed to having twin souls. Dan Qingshan extended 2 fingers, and they started glowing azure before touching Zhuo Fan's forehead. In a blink, Zhuo Fan's vision changed, appearing in a golden world. There, a proud sword stood stalwart with a huge prismatic dragon winding around it, bearing its fangs and claws. It was none other than a heaven dragon soul.
Whoosh.
Zhuo Fan was back to reality. Senior, that's... Zhuo Fan's eyes widened in shock. Dan Qingshan smiled in pride. See that? Those are my twin souls. One is the sword soul, and the other is the heaven dragon soul. They both exist at the same time, making my soul many times stronger than anyone else's. This is why I have become the best in Western lands. The next one to have it, boy, will be you, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan shook, his face overwhelmed by what he saw and heard. Twin souls had never appeared even in the sacred domain since 2 souls meant they had to fight for supremacy. However, those 2 souls were peacefully coexisting in the same place. What's going on? Zhuo Fan's eyes glinted as they rested on the jade slip. So even a mortal domain has some nifty stuff. Chapter 671. 3 Conditions. Chapter 671. 3 Conditions. Proofreader, Papatonks. The formation of the soul usually only happens once, in the ethereal stage, the culmination of one's spirit. Seeing Zhuo Fan staring intently at the jade slip, Dan Qingshan nodded and explained. However, Zhuo Fan, we are different. We've reached the culmination in the radiant stage and formed our souls. This way, we can form our soul once again. Zhuo Fan turned solemn, listening to his every word. Dan Qingshan's eyes were hard as he warned. But this chance has some conditions. One of them is that the second soul forming has to be far stronger than the first, or the first soul would interfere and would make it harder. That's easy since it's obvious. Since I formed my soul in the radiant stage, my spirit would be stronger when I reached the ethereal stage. Zhuo Fan spoke like it was obvious. Dan Qingshan smiled and shook his head. Ha ha ha. To others, that might be the case, but it will pose a challenge for you. Why do you say that? Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow in doubt. Dan Qingshan's eyes shone as he continued. This is related to the second condition of the twin soul. No mountain is higher. Since the second soul has to expend your spirit, it must be stronger than the first soul so that it can suppress it and form. Otherwise, it's a failure. That, I see. Zhuo Fan's brow shook, already understanding what he was saying. Heaven Dragon Soul was world energy taking form, one of the best a soul could ever become. So, what could possibly be stronger than a Heaven Dragon Soul? Dan Qingshan saw through his worry and sighed. Alas, you did not meet me earlier. Or, having seen how alike we are, I would have warned you when forming your first soul. Just like how I formed the sword soul first, then the Heaven Dragon Soul to suppress it and accomplish the twin soul art. Senior, that's just hindsight. I refuse to believe that if you were presented with the chance to form the Heaven Dragon Soul the first time, you would first wait for the sword soul. I bet you didn't even know twin soul was possible. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes.
Ugh.
Dan Qingshun's heart jerked, but he nodded. True. When I formed the sword soul, I had no chance of forming the heaven dragon soul first. However, it was this that gave me insight on how to achieve the twin soul of today. What if I form a second heaven dragon soul? Zhuo Fan's eyes lit up. Since the second soul had a hard time surpassing the first, making them equal was better. I'll just have to scour the world for some 10 more Earth Dragon souls. How hard could it be? However, Dan Qingshun shook his head. Boy, you know full well that a mountain ain't big enough for 2 tigers. If a man formed a twin soul of the same type, it would be a true toil. That is why a person can't have 2 beast souls. If you want them to coexist, they have to be different. When you try to form another heaven dragon soul, your first one won't just sit still. It will fight for its turf and will make sure you fail. Which takes us to the third condition, harmony. Take your room, for instance. You'd be annoyed if someone waltzed in yet wouldn't even bat an eye when an ant slipped in.
Why is that?
Because you don't see it as a threat to your interests. It is like you consider this room yours, and the ant will also see it as their nest. You live in harmony despite sharing the same room.
I see.
In other words, the Heaven Dragon Soul sees your sword soul as nothing more than a prop. Heaven Dragon Soul is a reptile at the core, so the two have no conflict of interests, resulting in harmony. Zhuo Fan's eyes lit up. Dan Qingshun nodded. That's exactly it, child. While the spirit is unique, the soul is a twin one, resting within it in harmony. As for how to achieve this, it's all written down in that art. Do your best and read it carefully. This is as far as I'm going to help you, ha ha ha. But senior, while I can understand all the other stuff, how am I going to form a soul stronger than the Heaven Dragon Soul? Please enlighten me, senior. Zhuo Fan pondered for a moment, then cupped his hands. Dan Qingshun shook his head. I have no solution either. It's all down to luck, ha ha ha. Dan Qingshun turned around and was gone. He ran away. In any case, I returned the favor and freed myself of this tie. Your success will now solely rest on your shoulders. I'm powerless anyway, ha ha ha. Wait, senior, Zhuo Fan hastily said, but he no longer sensed the old man around. Damn you, old coot, and your wretched favor. You gave me some twin soul art and got me intrigued, only to leave me high and dry when it's the hardest. What now? I know this strange art is nearly impossible to train in, but now I'm so piqued I can't let it go. Damn ungrateful old geezer. You clearly used it to lure me. How am I supposed to form a soul stronger than that dragon soul? Your secret special art is useless to me. But then Zhuo Fan thought differently. Dan Qingshun wants the sacred weapon that I got before him. The map I drew for him will just lead him to nothing. So this isn't a favor, but a practical joke. So he no longer felt cheated. It's up to me to make the most of this. What matters is that I got away scot-free. There's no point in worrying over it any longer. And so, Zhuo Fan's hand flashed, and Blood Infant came out of his body and turned into that demonic sword he was now holding. Looking at the pommel, he did find the word Atlas engraved on it. Oh, Atlas Sword. I was in such a rush then that I had no time to find out your name. Now I see it really is what that old guy wants. I just hope he never comes back to me to get it, or I'm finished. Zhuo Fan traced the blade as he said. However, just then, the old voice of Dan Qingshun sounded again. By the way, boy, I don't think you'll ever get to hide your wound in battle. If the two exalted find out, you'll be in trouble. Senior, you're back. Startled, Zhuo Fan hurriedly stuck the sword in his gut, running his body through it, making him grimace as blood seeped. The long sword snickered and turned into Blood Infant before hiding in his body. Glaring at his gut, Zhuo Fan crunched his teeth. Is this guy blind? The old man is back, and yet it's still delayed hiding. What if he found out? Fortunately, the wound this time was just skin deep. So Zhuo Fan ignored his self-injury and replied, Thank you for your concern, senior, but I have a brilliant plan. Oh, that's good. But just in case misfortune takes you, you had better not drag me in as well, and just say what happened to you. Or else. Dan Xing smiled coldly and sighed. What a shame you got so many eyes on you. I would have nipped this trouble from the start just to keep a clear conscience, but it will only have the opposite effect right now. Zhua Fan's cheek twitched, and he rolled his eyes at the old guy's whining. This guy takes matters into his own hands. Thank God I'm a shower, and everyone's now interested in me. He won't touch me, or it'll make things worse. Otherwise, if nobody discovered his secret, he'd be wiped off the face of this world. Since the outside of his room was quiet, he figured the old guy had left. Zhua Fan eased a breath and looked at the jade slip in his hand. Humph, might as well hang on to it just in case. I'll know more after I inspect it thoroughly. Zhua Fan started reading the jade slip carefully. His face shook as he delved deeper. The more he read, the more excited he got. Dan Xing is a true genius to come up with such a mystical art. Such a shame he's from mortal domain and had a poor start. If he were from a sacred domain, he might reach saint level. On the morrow, the arena was packed in minutes. All were pushing and rushing to get the best seat, excited for what would follow. After all, this battle had great significance, that of the greatest underdog that ever lived fighting the strongest middle three sect, Sword God sect. Sword God sect was also recognized as one to be just under a superior 3 sect. In other words, if Demon Scheming sect won this challenge, they would threaten the positions of the superior 3 sections, be it the national delegates or the other sect teams. All were here to watch history being made. The chances were high that Western land's status quo and sphere of interest would shift after this fight. One more reason why they should pay close attention. Qingcheng, the superior 3 sects are here as well.
Look at how serious they are.
They must feel threatened. Xue Ruohua pointed at a few sects as she spoke in shock. Tell me, do you really think Demon Scheming sect threatens the superior 3 sects that had been unchanged for thousands of years? Chu Qingcheng had a radiant smile. When he steps in, no one's position is ever safe. I've seen it happen so many times it has become a common occurrence. The bigger and stronger they are, the more likely they are to be thrown down from their throne by him. It's only natural to feel nervous, haha. Chapter 672, Gentle Sword. Chapter 672, Gentle Sword. Proofreader, Papatonks. Sister Qingcheng, you believe in him that much? The next 4 sects are in an entirely different league than the ones before. Danner fluttered her big eyes. Chu Qingcheng's expression never changed. He is a miracle worker. If there's anything he wants to do, then nothing is impossible. I do not doubt it. The rest's hearts chilled looking at her. Only Xian Xiaoyu's face turned heavy and morose. Whoosh. The judge was back in the center of the stage. He bowed before the exalted double dragons sitting in the highest spots and then shouted, "Disciples of Demon Scheming sect and Sword God sect, enter." As his words fell, the 2 groups walked in. Sword God sect was led by Wen Tao, though he seemed to have lost his casual nature, now sporting a grave and serious look. Demon Scheming sect was led by Zhua Fan, of course, only this time they were just 9, bearing Lu Xia. It was clear that the guy got the worst wounds yesterday and could not fight. With the 2 sides' disciples in the arena, the judge looked from one to another, then spoke to Zhua Fan. Demon Scheming sect has only 9 participants and is at a disadvantage. Do you have a replacement? Thank you for your concern, Elder. Demon Scheming sect cares about quality and not quantity. We'll fight even if we are missing 1 man. Zhua Fan cupped his hands, striking a heroic figure and earning the respect and admiration of the crowd. The judge nodded and turned to Wen Tao for his response. Wen Tao simply smiled and cupped his hands to him and the Demon Scheming sect. My Sword God sect is not one to take advantage of one's moment of weakness, but Demon Scheming sect is just so strong that we have to take it seriously. Even if it had only 1 person remaining, Brother Zhua, we'd still fight him. All 10 of us, as determined as ever. That's why, Brother Zhua, please show leniency. Brother Wen is too polite. Zhua Fan cupped his hands as well, his eyes flashing. Wen Tao sure is slick and charismatic. He is devoid of the arrogance that plagues those with status, bereft of a loser's cowardice. Instead, he shows a humble and steadfast attitude, his kindness hiding a ruthless nature. He does not lose his pride, and does not flaunt it either. While this won't make him outstanding, he does garner respect with his amiable nature. Just like they say, the gentle sword is sharp and smooth. Since both sides agree, we will begin the match. The judge flicked his hand and shouted, "Open the dimension." The last battle of the middle three sects challenge stage, between Demon Scheming Sect and Sword God Sect, begins.
Whoosh.
Those two elders once again walked on stage and opened a path to the valley. Wen Tao smiled and offered kindly, "Brother Zhua, after you." "Oh no, Brother Wen, after you." Zhua Fan returned his gesture, and the two sides vanished in a white flash. The audience was in awe. The Demon Scheming Sect isn't savage to everyone who walks their way. At the very least, towards the Demon Soul Sect and the Sword God Sect, one demonic and the other righteous, they look quite friendly. That meant Heaven Trailing Sect's brutal fate wasn't without reason. You're just too cocky. Why would the other give you any respect if you start threatening another? Soon, the people came to an understanding of the sect's demeanor. Demon Soul Sect was one to value duty and gratitude, Sword God Sect stood on ceremony, and Demon Scheming Sect responded with the same coin, depending on their adversary. As for Heaven Trailing Sect, the eyes of the crowd turned to their location to see just two people. Ren Tsong, among them, looked bitter and stared at Zhua Fan with all the hatred he could muster. This attitude earned the people's contempt. Showing off gets you killed off, idiot. Suddenly, the hearts of the people had made their choice. If the status of the 9 sects shifted in this competition, some strong empires would take the initiative to invite certain sects among them. The benefits, of course, would be greater for both sides. While Demon Scheming Sect's cruel act on the Heaven Trailing Sect had earned their disgust, the next 2 matches showed how heroic they were, changing the public's view. As for the disgust, it was all shifted to Heaven Trailing Sect. They were sure of it now that they deserved what they got. Who told you to be rampant? A petty and unceasingly pedantic sect will never have enough. In this manner, the funders wrote Heaven Trailing Sect as the worst sect to have. Unless they had absolutely no choice in the matter, they'd never accept it. Otherwise, they would shoot down any attempts this sect had to come to their lands. As if he could sense everyone's despise and disgust, Ren Tsong glared at them, and they balked in fear. Then Ren Tsong turned back to hating Zhua Fan with gnashed teeth. Wasn't he the victim here? How did he earn public ire after all he had been through? It made no sense. Elder Qi grumbled, his face heavy. However, just then, a faint voice reached their ears. Elder Qi, young Master Ren. My master would like to send a message to sect leader Ren. Would you care to talk? Who are you? The two turned around and saw someone covered in all black, shaking and instilling a feeling of weakness, as if a light breeze could topple him. His head hung low, blocking his face. When he rose his head, his pale face was there for all to see, shocking the two to the core. Wuxia, what do you want? Meanwhile, Zhua Fan's team had returned to the valley. Just like last time, he jumped back and said to Wen Tao, like I said, who could get on my level? Before he finished, when Tao's teasing came, I knew you'd do this, so I came up with the perfect way to deal with your 8 bodyguards.
8.
Zhua Fan raised an eyebrow and mocked, you're an ethereal stage expert, and I have 6 that can match you. Though 1 is down with wounds, 5 is still enough. So where did you come up with 8? Besides, all 10 of you are ethereal stage experts. You could easily handle them. Ha ha ha, that just won't do. Since Brother Zhua set up this trial, I must brave it myself. Won't I earn Brother Zhua's contempt by using my junior brothers to resolve problems? Wen Tao smiled. The other 9 Sword God Sect disciples, Xia Tianshang included, nodded. They stepped back and looked solemn, determined not to get involved. Qi Changlong squinted and grew angry. Wen Tao, are you saying you can take us 8 together by yourself? Humph, talk about arrogance. You might be in the 4th layer, but we have 2 in the 3rd layer, 1 in the 2nd layer, 2 in the 1st layer, and 5 ethereal stage experts. Not even you can beat us. That remains to be seen. Wen Tao sneered. Sometimes, a difference in cultivation does not reflect a difference in strength. Brother Zhua is the perfect example of this, always able to overcome the gap in the most overwhelming fashion. While we are just 1 layer apart, our strengths are another matter altogether, ha ha ha. Wen Tao chuckled and shot forth, Brother Zhua, you'll be fighting soon enough. This is just a warm-up. In mere moments I'll deal with these guys, who won't be able to do anything. What nerve! You take us for nothing. Is that it? Think you will reach Steward Zhua that fast? Qi Changlong huffed and made a sign. In an instant, a seal 100 meters high appeared overhead and slammed down on Wen Tao. Wen Tao couldn't care less, leisurely pointing 2 fingers ahead.
Whoosh!
A sword wave clashed with the huge seal, sending it flying. It then disappeared midway, having returned to Qi Changlong. Qi Changlong shuddered and spat blood. He sank to his knees, unable to get up again.
What?
Only 1 blow? The crowd was in an uproar, unable to believe their eyes. To them, Qi Changlong was second in strength to Zhuofan. They never thought it possible just a layer difference, even when the soul was taken out, would still be defeated after 1 blow. Such a difference made no sense. All turned grave as they watched Wen Tao. Even Zhuofan, though he did not care much, he did have a vague smile. Chapter 673. A hit.
Ew.
Chapter 673. A hit. Proofreader, Papatonks. Sorry, Brother Qi. I went easy, and you should just lie there for 6 hours, and you'll be fine. Wen Tao walked on, speaking words of comfort to Qi Changlong, as if to show sympathy for the loser. But the look he got from Qi Changlong was that of refusal and indignation. This is naked humiliation. Wen Tao wasn't one to be outrageous, maybe not even aiming to humiliate him. Still, having his all-out attack flicked away by a finger, this was the 2nd time this top genius of demon scheming sect had received guidance, bearing Zhuofan. This was the gap in strength. This was the gap between the top of the middle 3 sects and the lower 3 sections. Yes, they were challenging the superior 3 sects, but all knew full well who the instigator was. Other than a freak like Zhuofan, who could even take on superior 3 sects disciples, the rest were still lower 3 sects material. No matter what tricks Zhuofan used to grow them to a middle 3 sect level, a mere clash with a true genius of a middle 3 sect showed just how far they still were. Even Heaven Trailing Sect and their cowardly disciples, did they not have the Tsong twins? Those 2 beat all 6 of them like nothing. Only when Zhuofan stepped in were they dealt with. In Demon Soul Sect's match, Han Yunfeng was clearly weaker than them by a layer, but he pushed on one fight after the next. Ignoring the last 3, the first 3 fights were done at full power. He fought 3 people and still won. This time, they were up against Wen Tao, the strongest in the middle 3 sections. Only now it dawned on them just how lacking they were. Qi Changlong looked up at Bai Lian to see her use all she had but ended up defeated in the same brief manner as he was. Wen Tao went through them with practiced ease, like they weren't even worth the attention. Wen Tao was called the Gentle Sword, his mind was sharp and he paid close attention to courtesy. He held no contempt for any of them. But even so, it was because of their profound weakness that it made this upstanding peer brush them off. It gave Qi Changlong a deep feeling of powerlessness. Middle 3 sects and lower 3 sects were different breeds. They might earn a middle 3 sect spot, but catching up to a real middle 3 sect would take years and years of hard work. Steward Zhua had taken them here, but it was up to them to do the rest. Qi Changlong sighed within, having come to a decision. Wen Tao walked forward freely and unfettered. Gui Hu, Kui Lang, and Yu Ling weren't startled, choosing to attack him together. Wen Tao, don't think that you'll have it any easier just because you took down senior brother Qi and Bai. However, Gui Hu's words were met with 3 muffled sounds. Wen Tao popped behind them the next second. Then their necks stiffened and froze on the spot, only to collapse soon after. Sorry, you're not enough to block my path. Wen Tao smiled as he turned to Yue, Taiying, and Kuei Gang, the three in the radiant stage. The trio's faces fell, unnerved and unsettled. Wen Tao gave a warm smile, saying, "We'll take care of your freakish steward in a moment. So please stay down and don't disturb us." Wen Tao swiped 2 fingers in front of the trio, and they fell powerlessly. The demon scheming sect's disciples, except Zhuo Fan, were on the ground. Sword God sect had yet to suffer a single defeat. Moreover, all was quickly done by Wen Tao himself. It made all the onlookers speechless from shock. A single man had almost defeated the biggest underdog of the competition. Such power was unheard of. Even the superior 3 sect's disciples were stirring. I never thought Wen Tao would be so strong. Sword God sect's disciples truly are worthy to be in the superior 3 sections. As long as Wu Qingqiu looked intently at the fighting in the valley, especially at the lone Zhuo Fan. This final roadblock is removed. Then we'll be meeting Sword God sect in a challenge. Yan Mo squinted but mocked. That's just it. The biggest roadblock and Sword God sect's biggest headache. Wen Tao only got rid of the small fries, leaving this dragon of the deeps alone. Even if all 10 gang up, they might not defeat him. Oh, now that you mention it, we've never seen all 10 of Sword God sect's team fight together. Yet you're saying they can't measure up to Zhuo Fan. Wu Qingqiu looked astounded at Yan Mo. I admit Zhuo Fan is tough, but Sword God sect is no pushover either. If there will be 10 against 1, I do believe the odds are even. Yan Mo gave him a long look, then shook his head. That's because you never took on the punk's fist. I'll have to agree with Yan Mo on this. The final winner in this fight is Zhuo Fan, without a doubt. Yilin nodded. Wu Qingqiu gave him an odd look and chuckled. Junior brother, are you that certain? You didn't fight him either. Do you have to ask? Since he's my archenemy, I am more than sure. If he can't even deal with this little scuffle, how is he worthy of being my fated rival? Yilin smiled, but then he turned serious. And I can sense that the berserk power within him is no less than mine. If I could cope with mine, then he had to have subdued it as well. Eyeing him, Wu Qingqiu nodded his head and resumed watching the fight. On the other side, at Mystical Heaven Sect, the girls were restless in their worry for Zhuo Fan. Dana even pointed at the solitary figure, Sister Qingqing. He's now alone against 10. Will he be fine? Shui Ruohua furrowed her brows and turned to Chu Qingqing, eager for her reply. Humph, facing the strongest in the middle 3 sects, the punk's done for. Xian Xiaoyu got ahead of Chu Qingqing, enjoying his predicament. This earned a roll of the eye from the girls. They just could not understand where their refined young master had gone to. Ever since the matter with Yan Mo, their young master was becoming more and more sinister, incurring their dislike. Chu Qingqing did not mind his rude interjection. She looked at Zhuo Fan in complete confidence. No need to worry. He has always been alone. Having a few people around cheering for him won't matter since whenever he faces someone, it's always by himself. Alone? But this is a team battle. He never once thought about relying on others? The girls frowned as they saw Zhuo Fan's tranquil gaze. It was as if having all his teammates taken out by Wen Tao meant nothing. Wen Tao noticed it as well, and he became even more solemn. Everyone knew that man, by nature, was a social animal. Even a loner would, more often than not, become dependent on the people around him. They would always feel something when these people come to harm. Even if these people proved useless, the time spent alongside them proved this would happen. However, Zhuo Fan didn't so much as twitch. He was like a sword stuck in a huge rock, proud and unmarred by anyone that approached it. Like he wasn't part of the demon scheming sect, and its disciples had nothing to do with him. To this guy, beating demon scheming sect doesn't equal defeating him. Suddenly, Wen Tao chuckled, and his face grew hard. Ha ha ha, looks like we're just going to start fighting again. When Tao's hand flashed and was now holding a greenish sword that oozed sharpness, a ninth-grade spiritual weapon no doubt, and charged at Zhuofan. Dealing with the earlier small fries, he treated it like a game. However, he was facing Zhuofan now, and taking out his spiritual weapon showed how deadly serious he was in this fight, investing in it with all his being. Empty grace, sword wind.
Whoosh.
Just like a shooting start, when Tao stabbed at Zhuofan with his sword, the sharp energy around it was so acute it could almost cut space itself. He was on him in an instant. Zhuofan's heart jumped, even as his face remained still. He smirked as his right eye shone in 4 golden halos. Divine Eye of the Void's 4th stage, Space Crusher.
Boom.
As if the space itself exploded, all plants 100 meters around Zhuofan started to shake and drift away into nothingness. One Tao started and shot back in haste, but his sword was in the range of Space Crusher, constantly moving and dissipating the spatial disturbance. At the same time, that dissipated spatial power turned into a rumbling power flowing unabated in Space Crusher's range. This is sword energy that can wander inside Space Crusher? Zhuofan cried out, "Damn it. Too little, too late." The sword energy roaming in Space Crusher focused on the sword, and when Tao made a sign, the sword energy gathered on the sword released a powerful force that tore an opening in Space Crusher. And the sword made a beeline for Zhuofan, using this gap. Scarlet blood flowed. Zhuofan raised his right to block in a panic, but the sword ran his hand through. However, neither the audience nor the fighters noticed Zhuo's sly smile. A great hit. This will do well. Chapter 674, Let Loose. Chapter 674, Let Loose. Proofreader, Papatonks.
Ah.
Scarlet blood dripped on the ground, dyeing the earth red. Zhuofan's face throbbed as his face slowly took on a much darker tone. Until now, his nigh-invincible right arm was twitching in correlation with the pain it sent. Mystical heavens, sex girls gasped, filled with worry. Dana was frantic, Sister Qingqing, he's hurt badly. Lightly furrowing her brow, Chu Qingqing's heart tightened in silence. She had complete and utter confidence in Zhuofan that no matter what he faced or when this man would always come out on top. Even now, her belief hadn't been stirred. Yet despite this, she could still feel pain and worry for him when she saw Zhuofan's bloody right hand. This was Chu Qingqing's stance. She saw herself as nothing less than Zhuofan's woman. If a woman did not trust her man, then she could never call herself as to begin with. However, she would keep her eyes on her man, and the slightest wound would fill her with worry. It might sound contradictory, and it was, why worry when you believed he would win? This worry proved, in fact, you didn't believe him. This was the nature of women, filled with contradictions yet emotional to the core. Trust and tenderness. Looking at Chu Qingqing, her eyes filled with worry and anxiety, Xue Ruohua's opinion of her never fell. It occurred to her, then and there, and she looked back at Zhuofan with a sigh. It looks helpless and bitter, but I yearn for it. How is this possible? I had never managed to scratch him, and a measly when Tao ends up piercing that freak's arm? Yen Mo was overwhelmed by such a radical development on the screen that he shouted his indignation. Wu Qingqiu eyed him, then smiled. Yen Mo, aren't you a bit too conceited? I find Wen Tao just a layer under you, but no less weak. Coupled with the fact he made a sneak attack while exercising caution, Zhuofan was bound to be hit hard. Maybe he underestimated his opponent, since he was from a middle 3 sect. Brow shaking, Yen Mo was still incredulous. An almighty expert like Zhuofan, who resisted him every step of the way, would make such a gross miscalculation as overlooking sneak attacks. Especially when he could still hear Zhuofan's patronizing and preaching words. Sure, they were insufferable, but every word showed just how cautious this freak was, meticulous to the core. So how the hell would he suddenly turn sloppy in the face of challenging the middle 3 sect's strongest sect? It was too basic a mistake to make. What if it's on purpose? While Yan Mo was using every bit of brain power to figure out just what he saw, a faint voice pierced the fog. Yi Lin's sharp eye never left Shuo Fan, his brow furrowed, his face solemn. Wu Qingqiu raised an eyebrow, puzzled. Junior brother, where did that come from? Yan Mo looked at him as well, eager for the reply. Just a hunch, nothing more. Yi Lin shook his head and said, I don't believe he ever underestimates his enemy and makes such a gross mistake by taking this fight as trivial. The only plausible explanation is that he did it on purpose. Rolling his eyes, Wu Qingqiu shook his head and sighed. Junior brother, you're just too stubborn. No one is perfect, and we all make mistakes. Just because you find someone that caught your eye doesn't mean only you can beat him. Can't the rest of us have a sliver of chance as well? You try finding anyone who agrees with that logic, ha. Yan Mo's face twitched, but he shook his head in the end, thinking. Here, I thought this guy is great, but only has this dumb reason. Yi Lin spared them a brief glance, but said nothing. He kept staring at Shuo Fan with all his focus to see if he could find anything that unraveled the mystery. While Wu Qingqiu and Yan Mo didn't understand Yi Lin's reasoning, there was one person in this vast audience that saw through Shuo Fan. In the shadows, a glittering pair of eyes blinked at Shuo Fan's right, now gushing with blood, with a smirk. Haha, this punk is cunning indeed. He actually found such a grandstanding way of hiding his wounded arm. Dan Qingshun held his beard as he smiled in amazement. The kid could scout the sacred mine, and the wound he got from Atlas' sword could only be hidden for so long. I never dreamed he would think of using someone to strike his wound and hide its origins. I don't think there'd be any more reasonable explanation than this. But what is truly shocking is he actually went with it. He used his sect's disciples in the fight with Demon Soul Sect to stall. He didn't fight Han Yunfeng because the kid was too weak. If he ended up wounding this grand dark horse, then it would only raise suspicion. However, if it was Wen Tao instead, his power fit the bill, making this kind of wound obvious. It's truly rare for someone like him to know patience and understand choices. Anyone else thinking this plan would not consider every detail and would just fake being wounded in the fight with Demon Soul Sect. And that would have had the opposite effect, ha. Dan Qingshun chuckled. His strength and sharp mind make him a marvel of this world. I would have taken this boy along if I had not come for the sword this time and didn't want to raise alarm. Sigh, what a shame. Shaking his head, Dan Qingshun's figure was gone from the shadows. Meanwhile, with a groan, Wen Tao made a sign, and the sword stuck in Shuo Fan's right flew back in his hand. Gazing at the bright edge of his sword, and then at Shuo Fan's red arm, Wen Tao's brow was furrowed in puzzlement. Even he found it hard to believe he could land such a heavy blow. But then he cupped his hands in respect. Ha, Brother Shuo, sorry. I hope you will overlook my overbearing attack. It's fine since I won't be going easy either. Shuo Fan flicked his right and splattered the blood covering it on the ground. His face was heavy and his voice was low, as if enraged. Though no one figured out yet that his heart was dancing in joy. Now I don't have anything to worry about, and can let loose, ha. Wen Tao's face twitched. Brother Shuo, it wasn't on purpose. I didn't mean to give you such a heavy wound. I was only distraught by Brother Shuo's power, but never imagined. You mean to say, I don't live up to my name? That I'm not so tough to even take one hit? Is that it? Shuo Fan faked anger. Then, Brother Wen, allow me to show you all that I'm capable of. Now I can't waste Brother Wen's kind intentions, can I? Wen Tao's mouth twitched, and he shook his head. But then his gaze steeled. Let's go. Since Brother Shuo wants to let loose, then I'll be happy to oblige. Wen Tao swung his sword, and an invisible ripple shot from its edge straight for Shuo Fan. However, unlike the brash space crusher's way of unleashing its power, the sword's vibrations were gentle, like silken threads drifting with the winds. As a dinghy on wave doth drift, and willow branch bend in the wind so swift, never more than a finger lift. Such is the way of peace and gift. With that poem, Wen Tao pointed at his sword and smiled. Brother Shuo, the name of this sword is ephemeral life, a gentle and aloof sword. It drifts with the world and stands free of burden. It is not a sword meant for brute force, but refined and carefree in nature. But even gentleness has power. Even it can take a life. Do take care, Brother Zhua. Zhua Fan's heart sank, and he understood his meaning. In Space Crusher, everything was pulverized, yet this sword energy remained because it used softness to glide through brute force. However, while the sword looked soft, it was hard. Only when combined with that gentle sword energy could it release such a power that could break Space Crusher. Recalling the sword's name, Zhua Fan had figured out everything. Such is the way of peace and gift. This did not mean it was weak, but it was crafty and ready to pounce when the time was right. While a breeze could not shift a mountain, it can move me with it, thus borrowing its power with time and unleashing it all at the right time. This was the meaning of the sword's name and what made Gentle Sword Wen Tao deadly. Gentleness acted as entrapment, while hardness struck one's defenses, ending everything in a split second just like before. Having understood all about his opponent, he also had the perfect response. Raw power could not beat gentleness, as it was meant to carry it. Only through destruction and instant annihilation could he finish this before the opponent gathered momentum. Zhua Fan sported a vague grin, with purple lightning arching around his right hand. The fist turned into a dragon claw, ready to rip the sky. Wen Tao was startled, his face twitching. Did I just talk too much? Showing off allowed this punk to find my sword's weakness. Wen Tao felt like smacking himself hard to wake up. Chapter 675, Soft to Hard. Chapter 675, Soft to Hard. Proofreader, Papatonks. Brother Zhua is truly an astute man, able to understand my gentle sword. Ha ha ha. Wen Tao glanced at the purple lightning and let out a strained laugh. Zhua Fan grinned. You're far too kind. It's Brother Wen who explained it to me. It's truly a dumb thing to show off all your cards before the fight even begins. But today, I witnessed Brother Wen's actions and heard your words. Now I have a whole new view of it. Brother Wen didn't do it out of foolishness, but as a generous gentleman. Ha ha ha. Everyone watching the fight burst out laughing. Wen Tao looked bashful. Maybe regardless of being a fool or a gentleman, I'm sure with Brother Zhua's perception, you would have noticed it after a couple of moves without even me saying it. Rather revealing this before the fight to everyone so that I would be seen as open-minded. However, knowing my sword and defeating it are two different things. Wen Tao smiled and raised his sword. He flicked it and sent several sword energies straight for Zhua Fan. Brother Zhua, take this gentle sword, ever-flowing and ever-changing.
Whoosh.
Zhua Fan's heart sank, and he got himself ready. The purple lightning on his right hand crackled, but as the sword energies reached him, they turned soft, floating in the air, and surrounded him, trapping him in their center. Wen Tao waved his sword again and sent more sharp sword energy at Zhua Fan, turning into thousands of strands in a blink of an eye. However, like before, the sword energy turned soft right before reaching Zhua Fan, drifting in the wind. He was now trapped in a quagmire of sword energy, with no way out. Fiend Yang turned grave and face-bombed. This punk is just too cocky. He not once came to see the middle 3-sec stage, and has no idea what Wen Tao can do with this attack. He is caught in thousands of strands, unable to break free of the sword energy. Be it Heaven Trailing Sect or Demon Soul Sect, neither could escape it when it was unleashed in their team battles. While Zhua Fan was tougher, it was still unknown if he could pull it off. Fiend Yang and Fiend Yin were looking very tense. The one who was in the center of this entrapment looked far more relaxed by comparison. Zhua Fan just grinned and used his right dragon claw to swipe. Along with the crackling, the purple lightning destroyed any sword energy it touched. The purple lightning has the power to destroy the world. While its power is lacking, its character is one of destruction. Wen Tao's gentle sword energy had just met its nemesis. Yilin showed a hint of a smile, but then he turned solemn. However, I'm sure Wen Tao is aware of it as well. But since he does something so pointless, he must have a backup plan. Wu Qingqiu and Yan Mo gave Yilin a deep look, then returned to the fight with a nod. Just as this genius of the superior three sex said, the sword energy strands got crushed, but Wen Tao showed no worry. Making a sign, Wen Tao made the struck sword energy that floated about. As a result, to enter the sword in his hand. Zhuo Fan noticed, to his amazement, that ephemeral life exploded in power. Zhuo Fan's heart shook, and he understood gentle sword's true meaning. It's to drift alongside you like the wind until you are squeezed to death. These gentle sword energy strands acted like a fence. If one started bashing it, the sword energy fragments would return to the sword and turn from soft to hard, greatly bolstering its power. The source of this power was, on one hand, the soft sword energy gathering on the sword, and on the other, the power of the adversary fueled within the blade. This way, the more he let it drag out, the worse it would be for him. So that's why he said that knowing and defeating it are different things. Regardless, once his strands are out, he holds the advantage. Unless one uses force, there's no quick way to end it. Ha ha ha, how amusing. Since this is the case, I'll punch right through. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed and shot for Wen Tao. But just then, under Wen Tao's urging, the soft sword energy strands plugged the gap, and Zhuo Fan was trapped again. However, Zhuo Fan, having seen his tricks, there was no way he would let himself get stalled again. So, he swiped his lightning-streaked claw. Roar! With a draconic roar, the purple lightning-fueled claw crushed the soft sword energy, clearing a path. Zhuo Fan took the next second to get out of the circle. The scattered pieces of sword energy gathered on the sword, but the remaining soft sword energy strands had no time to block Zhuo Fan again. Wen Tao's brow shook, and his gestures changed. The soft sword energy turned hard, stabbing Zhuo Fan from all directions. Zhuo Fan grinned and flicked his right, shattering the strands with the purple lightning. Wen Tao raised an eyebrow and didn't dally. He changed his hand sign, and all the sword energy gathered on the sword. The sword's edge gleamed with unspeakable power at that moment. Zhuo Fan now finally arrived before Wen Tao and struck. Wraith style, second move, ghostly dragon claw. Soft to hard, heaven-breaking sword. Wen Tao did not hesitate to stab straight for Zhuo Fan as well. In an instant, ephemeral life looked to have been soft all its existence and turned hard in this fleeting moment. With that stab, it was like the world's power fell on Zhuo Fan's shoulders. Zhuo Fan's claw came like a raging dragon, violent and overbearing. It was as if this claw was going to tear the world asunder. Clang! The claw and sword met in a screeching clash, a clash that only lasted for a split second before they separated. Zhuo Fan's body stood in his spot, his attack blocked, while Wen Tao was thrown tens of meters from the sudden force of impact. When he straightened up, he looked at Zhuo Fan in shock, puzzlement, and disbelief. What just happened? Why did a casual sword strike wound him so before, yet my all-out attack did nothing? He even managed to bounce me back. Just what is happening? Was he truly careless before? Is that why I hit him? Now that he's serious, there's no way of hurting him? This guy is strong to a terrifying degree. Gulping, Wen Tao showed no glee but unprecedented seriousness. The ones watching the fight had no idea what Zhuo Fan was really capable of. Especially that ridiculous body of his. How is he still human when not even a 9th-grade spiritual weapon can't scratch him? While he was shocked, Zhuo Fan was even more so. His right hand used the world's power, that of the invincible sacred beast, Qilin. It should be natural to win any encounter when it is involved. However, he never thought it possible to be blocked, leaving him depressed. Wen Tao is good. Gentle Sword is not only capable but uses both soft and hard skills to perfection. They would scream if others knew he was depressed because of this tiny little detail. You're the damn violent brute here. Dude, you're depressed cause he blocked you? Then what about the rest of us? Should we be in the pits of despair? Luckily, he didn't show it, keeping it to himself as he went for Wen Tao again. He could see that gentle sword no longer had as much power in his sword as before. So all he had to do was strike fast before Wen Tao gathered some more power, which was when his sword would be defeated.
Whoosh.
He reached Wen Tao in a flash and swiped with his claw. Wen Tao hurriedly blocked with his sword, but was sent flying. The force pierced his innards and forced him to spit blood. Ha ha ha, I just knew it. You can never beat me directly, without the gentle sword's accumulated power. Zhuo Fan did not pursue and smiled. Brother Wen, do you have any tricks? Use them now or surrender. Since you are a gentleman and courteous, I will reply in kind. Wen Tao looked long and hard at Zhuo Fan. I knew I couldn't match you alone. I was only testing you from the start. Knowing to back off when it's futile is something I told others. But I can never retreat. However, ha ha ha, Brother Zhuo, the team battle is just getting started. Wen Tao's eyes flashed, and he stood up after wiping the blood from his mouth. The other 9 Sword God sect disciples were now on the move. Chapter 676, Harmony of Soul. Chapter 676, Harmony of Soul. Proofreader, Papatonks. Finally, Sword God sect hadn't yet involved all their disciples in team battles. Now they're going all out against one man, ha ha ha. Wu Qingqiu chuckled, his eyes filled with excitement. I can't wait to see what Sword God sect is made of. Yan Mo also nodded. Ever since the middle 3 sects stage, the Sword God sect has been hiding something. Maybe they have a weapon to challenge the superior 3 sects with. However, they're forced to use it on an underdog. Wu Qingqiu thought the same. Thump. With heavy steps, Sword God sect's 9 disciples came behind Wen Tao as if to give him support, as they stared at Zhuo Fan, filled with thirst for battle. They all saw what Zhuo Fan could do, and even their team leader couldn't deal with him after going all out. But they were not in the least bit anxious, but steeled in their determination. Zhuo Fan approved of their attitudes. For some reason, Zhuo Fan felt that Wen Tao's gentle sword title was half attributed to the 9 disciples. As if the gentle sword's true power would be unleashed only when they worked together. Zhuo Fan, I know you're a body cultivator of freakish build, and not just anyone can withstand it. However, now we will strike your weak spot. Do watch out. Xie Tianshang stepped forward with a serious look. Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow and nodded. Give me everything you got. I'll take it you all on. Hey, you can't just throw the match just because he's an old buddy. He's our strongest opponent yet. Wen Tao shook his head, smiling. Xie, I always feel your name makes me lose out every time I say it. Haha, did you not see me talking too much and ending up revealing my secret? You saw how I lost. So you better learn from my mistakes. Smiley face, Xielit. Means thanks. Like you wouldn't have lost anyway, even without babbling and explaining your style. A calm voice echoed out, a loss is a loss. If you keep looking for excuses, you're only going against the gentleman's code. They all turned to see Zhuo Fan scratching his chin, knowing the thick sarcasm in his words. When Tao's face fell and snapped, Brother Zhuo, I get that you win. But can you please not kick someone when he's down? That's how it is if you don't admit it. Zhuo Fan grinned. Wen Tao huffed, then flicked his head away in annoyance. Xie Tianshang smiled. Brothers, we're here to do battle, not squabble. What would that one even account for? The next fight is the one to determine the real winner. Well said. What does personal honor mean when fighting in a team battle? When Tao's eyes lit up, Brother Zhuo, get ready. This won't be so easy. We'll see when it ends. Zhuo Fan smiled, but his eyes showed caution. Sword God sect's 10 disciples made signs, and 10 glinting swords flew from them and into the sky with a ripple. That's... Zhuo Fan was startled, and so was everyone. Someone even shouted in shock. That's their souls. Just what are they planning to do by releasing 10 souls? Yan Mo looked stunned. Wu Qingqiu was frowning, shaking his head. The soul is the core of one's spirit. Unless one would fight to his dying breath, No one would just take it out. However, facing an expert like Zhuofan, a soul would easily end up damaged. Aren't they looking to die by releasing them all? This is the only way for them to release all they have. Only by fighting to the end. Yilin sighed. Why must they go so far? Zhuofan is my opponent. Why are they in such a rush to stake their lives? Wu Qingqiu sighed, his face solemn and filled with respect for Sword God Sect's disciples. Knowing full well there's no chance they have no remorse in giving their very being in defeating their adversary. This is a warrior's honor and life pursuit. These 10 people are worthy of our respect. Yi Lin and Yan Mo looked at Wu Qingqiu and nodded. At this time, the ever-stony exalted double dragons finally expressed emotions. Talking and laughing, working together, and staking one's life. This was both foolish and also dedication. Zhuofan, if you can't block our attack, you must dodge. We won't attack again, but that will mean your defeat. Don't be stubborn and risk your life for nothing. Xie Tianshang made a sign and shouted at Zhuofan. Zhuofan started, looking at them oddly. He could sense their move would shake the world itself, but hey, who's the one risking his life here? You got your souls out and everything. Are you that confident I wouldn't just pluck your souls one by one? When Tao saw that he was skeptical, so he mediated, Brother Zhua, Junior Brother Xie isn't joking. You'll know in a moment. Our strike will hit you right where it hurts the most. When Tao made his own sign and shouted, Harmony of Soul Sword, gather. The other 9 people echoed him in shouting and gestures. The 10 swords in the heavens above gathered, and a strange, gentle power ebbed from their center. Like a simple string, it linked all the sword souls together. When Tao shouted again, and a dazzling white light brightened the skies. It was so intense the sun itself paled. Once the light passed, the people cried in shock. 9 swords were gone from the sky, leaving just one. But this sword soul released an incredible power with every motion. The slightest movement shook space enough to rip it. That's a soul harmony? Exalted by Mei cried, everyone's soul is different and mutually exclusive. But there are arts in this world, soul harmonies, that can unify them. It's rare enough to see 3 souls join together, but Sword God Sect managed to do it with 10? This is like a miracle. Exalted Hei Ren nodded as well, equally amazed. Sword God Sect has the sword at its core, with everything related to it. All of their disciples form a sword soul as well. To them, it will be much easier to practice soul harmony. But this is just too overwhelming for it to happen with 10 in one moment. I believe the core of it is gentle sword, that one Tao. Soft and hard. Hard enough to break the heavens and soft enough to absolve anyone. He is the tie that binds them. This is how such a remarkable art like soul harmony came to be. Exalted by Mei squinted and nodded. The list of names once again appeared in his hand. Wu Qingqiu and Yan Mo were stunned. 10 souls fused into one. Such a soul power was more than mere deadly. Zhuofan had so far only shown off his body's outrageous power. No one here ever knew anything about his soul, or how strong it was. No wonder when Tao and Xie Tianshang warned Zhuofan to dodge it. Such a strong soul attack would rip Zhuofan's soul to shreds if his were any weaker. And even if it were strong, it would still be left with a deadly wound. When Tao was called Gentle Sword, yet his final move was soul harmony. He truly walked an incredibly overbearing path, yet soft to the extreme. This sword was beyond strong. He's in trouble, Wu Qingqiu sighed. Yilin looked grave as well. Only Yan Mo looked eager, having some expectations. He only caught a glimpse of Zhuofan's soul last time, and it was by no means weak. As for how strong it was, he didn't live up to the challenge. But now, this freak's soul would finally come out. Sister Qingqing, what now? How could any one man take on such a powerful soul? On Mystical Heaven Sect's side, Danner was filled with worry and restlessness as she pulled on Chu Qingqing's clothes. She was more worried than anyone about Zhuofan's predicament. Xian Xiaoyu said flatly. It's best for that devil to die, humph. The girls only ever looked at Chu Qingqing in worry. They all knew she knew Zhuo Fan the most. She would know in her heart if Zhuo Fan could come out alive. However, she was also somewhat alarmed since she didn't know a thing about Zhuo Fan's trump cards. However, from what she saw of Zhuo Fan's cool expression, her heart regained calm, and she smiled. He's going to be fine. Chapter 677. Heaven Dragon Soul. Chapter 677. Heaven Dragon Soul. Proofreader. Papatonks. Boom. A sharp whistling wind made itself known. The 10 fused sword souls were as huge as a hill, pressing down on Zhuo Fan. The thick aura made everything around Zhuo Fan quiver and crack the earth. Rock split, and then the dust and rock fragments started floating upward. It was not that the laws of physics were out of whack, but it was the Earth's reaction to being pushed. It was as if the sword's gravity outweighed the Earth's. Fiend Yang gasped in shock. The soul harmony of 10 sword souls was beyond anything they had imagined. What kind of power would require showing such a strong reaction? It was this power that was bearing down on Zhuo Fan's head. However, he was still the same, standing there in absolute calm. Fiend Yang was sweating buckets. And it wasn't demons scheming sex venerables, but everyone else was getting nervous over Zhuo Fan's fate. Even the Exalted showed serious looks. This move was a true combined team attack. Not one person here, not even among the superior 3 sects, could take such an attack head-on. However, if one such person came out on top from the exchange, he would become a candidate for the best in Western lands on the spot. He might even challenge Dan Qingxin's position in the future. The 2 Exalted watched Zhuo Fan's figure with extreme seriousness and furrowed brows. Brother Zhuo, are you really not going to step away? Seeing Zhuo facing this new sword soul's power unflinching and undeterred, Wen Tao felt like he had to warn him again. However, Zhuo Fan merely smiled and shook his head. If I move, won't that mean I admit defeat? Since you, Brother Wen, have pushed on despite the obvious outcome, wouldn't I be a coward if I acted otherwise? A true man, I see. This fight, regardless of the outcome, I'll remember it. And I'll remember you. With a shout, Wen Tao's hand sign changed, and the huge sharp sword soul went right for Zhuo Fan. The pressure increased manifold in an instant. If before, its drift downward only gave a heavy presence, this time, it was more like a hammer bashing into you until you were mush. Not even the ever-dauntless Zhuo Fan could remain unfazed under it, stalling his breath. So strong. Zhuo Fan had his own calculation of how strong this attack might be, but that did not mean he had to be careless, making signs himself now. Just as it was about to slam into him, everyone watched with bated breaths, watching as a startling draconic roar came from within his body. Prismatic light drenched his surroundings as the mighty sword soul trembled and stopped. Sword God Sect's 10 disciples shivered, watching with incredulous eyes. Why would their invincible soul soar up and stall in midair? It was like something was holding it back. The moment they saw what it was, their hearts cried out in shock as they gasped at the impossible sight. Their awe-inspiring sword soul was in a sharp dragon claw, covered in prismatic light. Behind that claw was a 100 meters long dragon, circling Zhuo Fan and keeping him safe. The piercing and overbearing dragon eyes made all, even the audience, shudder inside, making them jump to their feet. It was as if they were nothing but ants under those dragon eyes. This naked disregard was felt to their core. "That's," Wu Qingqiu cried out. Yan Mo was just as shocked. Now I see why just half revealing his soul last time would display so much power. If memory serves, this must be the legendary Heaven Dragon Soul. Across all the Western lands, there are only the 2 Exalted that managed to form such a soul. Yan Mo turned around to glance at the Exalted. The usually composed elders were now standing, shocked at this wonder that was Zhuo Fan. Heaven Dragon Soul was the strongest in the world, and its forming was just as undertaking. But it went beyond their wildest imagination that a mere radiant stage imp would do it. Even Dan Qingshun back then couldn't. The two exalted exchanged a glance and looked on. The Western lands finally had another mighty genius. I see, so that's why you didn't fear their united sword soul. So you formed the Heaven Dragon soul as well. Yilin chuckled as he watched the mighty presence on the screen. That's for the best. It's the least my fated rival should have. Wait, back up. Won't that make you the one my master told me about that stole the dragon power from the dragon tomb? Ha ha ha. Wu Qingqiu jerked at his words. Junior brother, what do you mean by dragon tomb? Oh, nothing. I'm just saying this guy is worthy of being my adversary, just by his courage alone. Ha ha, Yilin chuckled. Wu Qingqiu muttered in doubt. Junior brother, I know you're amazing, but there are some things I don't understand. Now that he took out the Heaven Dragon soul, yet you're still saying he is the perfect adversary for you. Does that mean you have a soul to match his? That is a secret you'll know soon enough. Yilin had a mysterious smile. Wu Qingqiu's doubts only increased, but did not push the issue. Only now did the rest of the crowd realize the implication of this soul, and they grew excited as they drowned the stands in a clamor. Heaven Dragon Soul, something only the exalted double dragons have in the entire Western lands. But how can the great exalted just show their souls? I never thought it possible that today I'd be given such a treat. An average disciple actually formed the strongest soul. It was breathtaking. It also lives up to its name, blocking the power of 10 souls. Mystical Heaven sex girls were overwhelmed, chattering in glee. The fiend venerables were so touched they were on the verge of tears. Since we have an ultimate genius with a Heaven Dragon soul in our sect, does that mean we can aim for double Dragon Manor's position? Frickin' hell, this windfall is just too sudden. They were just some no-name lower 3 sect and now had the prospects of becoming the head of Western lands. This damn brat. Couldn't he have told us the great news earlier? I was so scared my poor little heart was about to burst out of my chest. Fiend Yang wiped his nose in tears of joy. Some men's joy was another men's sorrow. Zhuo Fan's display of the Heaven Dragon Soul was unquestionably a moment of happiness for Demon Scheming Sect and his friends. However, for the superior 3 sects that were about to face his challenge, it was nothing short of a nightmare. Everyone paled on the spot, while the 10-sword God sect disciples facing this monster were close to tears. When Tao glanced at Zhuo Fan and the huge dragon above, then cursed, Seriously, Zhuo Fan? Is this what you call cowardice? What pushing on despite obvious outcome? With the Heaven Dragon soul, there's nothing you can't do. What's with all the posturing and playing the victim? You even made me believe it. I did say that I would face you, but that did not refer to you. What are you getting all that excited about? Rolling his eyes, Zhuo Fan refused to admit his wrong, mocking. Want to continue? If not, throw in the towel. Staring at Zhuo Fan, when Tao snorted in anger, throw in the towel? No way. When our souls combine, we will draw blood. When Tao shouted, and the 10 people made a new sign, their eyes burning with fighting spirit. Everyone heard a sudden ear-piercing screeching as the sword soul in the Heaven Dragon's soul claw scraped against its nails step by step, about to come out of its grasp. Heaven Dragon's soul was strong, but 10 sword souls combined was nothing to scoff at. The huge sword was now approaching Zhuo Fan, ready to smash him. Zhuo Fan's heart jumped and made hasty signs himself. The dragon claw upped its force by a third. The 10 disciples shook as blood leaked from their mouths.
But they still pressed on.
The sword's soul kept sliding off as the claw could no longer keep it locked. Wen Tao, are you that intent on risking everything? At this rate, this will only end with me being smashed by your sword soul, or if I shatter your souls with my dragon claw. In my case, it will only be my body that perishes while your soul will be destroyed. Your price is so much steeper. Zhuo Fan's hands trembled in the sign he made. He looked at the incoming storm and warned the 10 disciples. Gnashing his teeth to the point of bleeding, when Tao shouted his last will, braving the dangers despite the obvious outcome. That's the way of the sword. If we back down now, We'll never live to accept this shame, and never would we reach the peak of swordsmanship. Death is a much better option. Zhuo Fan, I used to be a martial fanatic, only knowing that strength is needed to win, and not one's path. Now that I'm in the Sword God sect, I finally found my path. This fight, today I do not fight you, only follow the path I chose without turning back. Xie Tianshang shouted at the sky. The rest of his fellow disciples echoed him, never turning back, never turning back. Chapter 678, The Only Team. Chapter 678, The Only Team. Proofreader, Papatonks. Zhuo Fan gave the 10 of them a long look, taking in their determination and the blood around their mouths with a slight nod. Since that is the case, I can only oblige. Wraith Style's second move, Ghostly Dragon Claw. Zhuo Fan's hand made a gesture, and the Heaven Dragon's soul roared, increasing the power of its claw. Crack. The huge sword soul sported a hairline fracture, causing the 10 disciples to tremble once more and spew blood. Even so, they held on, and the sword's soul kept sliding downward. Zhuo Fan's gestures continued, and Heaven Dragon Soul's claw's power was increased again. When he finished going through the signs, the Heaven Dragon Soul used the Ghostly Dragon Claw, further amplifying the damage to the sword soul, which was on the verge of shattering. The Sword God sect disciples were about to have their souls purged in that instant. However, as Zhuo Fan's signs came to a close, he suddenly stopped right at the end. He grumbled and relaxed his hands before making a different sign. Wraith Style. Third move, Necro Dragon Screech. Roar. The power of the claw abated, and the dragon opened its maw to release a roar at the sword soul. A powerful sound wave carried Heaven Dragon Soul's soul power and slammed into the sword soul, making it tremble. With a bang, the huge sword soul split into 10 souls as they flew back to their bodies. Wen Tao and his fellow disciples shook and spewed blood before collapsing. The audience was shaken by this outcome, filled with complex emotions. This showed them in no uncertain terms that Zhuo Fan, this demonic cultivator, had spared their lives at the last moment. This same ruthless and vindictive demonic cultivator let righteous cultivators live. It was beyond baffling. While there could be friendship, everyone knew that the demonic path was pitiless. The fact Zhuo Fan had urged them to give up was already kind enough, and even if he had killed them, no one would call it into question. The ending, however, was when Zhuo Fan was about to doom them for eternity. That last moment made him change his mind, opting for splitting their combined soul and sparing them. He only left them with a heavy wound. This made the audience baffled as to his intentions. A demonic cultivator is a twisted and deceitful individual. He is making Sword God sect owe him. He's making sure that Demon Scheming sect will now have a middle 3 sect ally after this. Humph, vile demon spawn, you may be able to deceive others, but you'll never succeed in pulling the wool over my eyes. Leader of the Universal Righteous Sect's team, Zhao Dezhu's eyes shone, having seen through his play. He turned to his fellow disciples and admonished them. See that? See how cunning a demonic madman is? Now the Sword God sect would be moved to tears. Sigh, this is how another righteous sect degenerates. One disciple started sucking up to him the minute he finished. Senior brother is right. I only hope the Sword God sect disciples can be as wise and open-minded as senior brother to see this vile spawn's treachery. But how can there be someone as righteous and outstanding as senior brother all around us? I fear that they would fail to understand this truth. Exactly. Rubbing his chin, Zhao Dezhu felt elated at this guy's skill in flattery taken to the rank of art. He sighed most dramatically. That's what worries me. Without someone like me in their sect, they would be easy prey to these demons' hypocrisy. That's why I keep telling them not to come in contact with demonic cultivators, or they will one day fall prey to their machinations. Especially that Ultimate Clarity sect, as the head of the superior 3 sects, should take it upon itself to root out all evil, demonic cultivators in particular. But they... Senior brother, please calm your anger. I can see that such a righteous cause will soon be squashed in the hands of these undivided sections. It'd be better if we become the head of the superior 3 sects and a just model for all the righteous sects out there. That disciple was laying on as thick as possible, especially that best disciple in Western lands. That title should be Senior Brothers by right. Only Senior Brother and his righteous conviction can lead the Western lands. Zhao Dezhu nodded at every word with a natural face like it was all a given. But then his face sank as he turned to Zhao Fan. That may be, but I can't defeat Wu Qingqiu, nor Yan Mo. Now that another monster with a heaven dragon soul appeared, it just had to be a demonic madman. Is this the omen to the doom of righteousness? Senior Brother, history shows us that evil never triumphs against good. Sooner or later, the best in Western lands can only be Senior Brother. That guy's flattery just wouldn't stop. Zhao Dezhu was feeling much better for it too, but he also knew the truth. Screw your evil never triumphs against good. When it's all said and done, it's all a matter of whose fist is bigger. They were last in the superior 3 sects rankings, and now that the demon scheming sect came challenging, the odds were they couldn't even keep their spot. So, what head of the 9 sects? I'd be happy if we keep just our status. Grumbling on the inside, Zhao Dezhu shook his head, thinking of ways to make that happen. Wu Qingqiu rubbed his chin, giving Zhao Fan a long look. Is he doing this for the future of his sect? Demon Scheming Sect is just a lower 3 sect. Rising to the rank of middle 3 sect and crushing Sword God Sect's team in the process would only earn their hatred. It would only make things worse. It's one thing to become a middle 3 sect and another to grow into one. That takes time, even with Double Dragon Manor's resources. I think it is a straightforward decision. When with me, he didn't even care I was from a superior 3 sect, so why would he care about a middle 3 sect? Yan Mo shook his head. Moreover, demonic cultivators are known to be volatile and rash. When they say they'll strike, that's what they'll do. So, why change tunes midway? The way I see it, he just didn't feel like killing them, nothing more. Wu Qingqiu raised an eyebrow. Didn't feel like it? The blade was at their throat, yet he didn't feel like swinging it? Since when can demonic cultivators easily withdraw their bloodlust? Yan Mo fell silent. As a demonic cultivator himself, he knew it far better. His thirst to kill had to be satiated fully when it was brought out. Otherwise, it would stifle and work against him, harming his soul. The chance was it might even make a hole in one's convictions. As for why Zhao Fan did it in stride, it was beyond him. Ignorance makes you amazed. Yi Lin butted in with his mockery. Be it demonic or righteous cultivators, they all want to elevate their heart and mentality to an unrestrained degree. What's so odd about Zhao Fan restraining his desire for blood? This only proves his heart has reached an incredible level, even above many of our elders, even beyond mine. What I find odd, though, is why he did it. Is it really out of friendship? That's not the demonic path. Yi Lin frowned, his mind filled with countless thoughts. High above the stands, the two exalted shared a glance and beamed. Bai Mei, see that? This boy is just like us back then. Exalted He Ran chuckled. Looking at the baffled looks of the crowd, Exalted Bai Mei nodded as well. Yes, this is a reason not many can see. While demonic and righteousness are conflicting, they're all paths leading to the same destination. Among those that seek it, a kind of kinship forms, which is natural. Like us, Zhao Fan and the Sword God Sect's team also have it. Right, mortals pursue glory and riches, something even cultivators can't completely separate themselves from. How few are there, those pursuing the end of the road with their whole being. They won't understand while the rascal refrained from killing them. Only we know. Seeing Wen Tao's team so driven on the path of the sword, it's like I'm seeing myself and my determination. Even to a demonic cultivator, as long as he has this pursuit at heart, he will never deal the last blow to a fellow path traveler. The demonic path is cruel, but they value heroes just as much. I want all of those 10 boys. Ha ha ha, Exalted by Mei took out the roster and scribbled down 10 more names. A white pillar burst into view, conveying the judge's words. The victor is decided. You all can now return. Zhuo Fan pulled the Heaven Dragon soul back inside and looked at Wen Tao's team to see their wan faces, filled with unwillingness. We lost, so let's just go. We lost, after all, ha ha ha. Wen Tao shook his head with a bitter smile as he got up. He turned to his team with blood dripping from his lips. Junior brothers, let's go. Don't be discouraged. We might have lost this challenge, but it's not our swordsmanship that did. Our path can move on. One day we will defeat this monster and wash away this shame. Are you sure? Raising an eyebrow, Zhuo Fan smiled. Glaring at him, Wen Tao stabbed his finger as he shouted, Next time we will win. I'll be happy to meet you again in battles. Zhuo Fan turned serious. The next time we fight, though, I hope it will be all 10 of you. Wen Tao clenched his fists and spoke with power. Don't you worry, you will. The disciples cupped their fists, still filled with fighting spirit. Like this was their victory. Sword God Sect's team walked through the white pillar, but before they did so, they helped up Demon Scheming Sect's disciples and went together. Zhuo Fan looked on with a smile. When it came Xia Tianshang's turn, he looked at Zhuo Fan. Although this might sound brazen and ignorant, I'll still challenge you the next time. It's not just to defeat you, but so that my sword would grow on. And I won't be challenging you alone, but with those 9 senior brothers you defeated with me. Xia Tianshang left through the pillar, but then he heard Zhuo Fan chuckle just as he went through. Xia Tianshang, Sword God's sect has now caught my eye. The only team. You won the team battle. I only won the singles. Hearing this, Tianshang grinned as he moved through the white curtain. Chapter 679, Superior 3 Sex Stage. Chapter 679, Superior 3 Sex Stage. Proofreader, Papatonks. Demon Scheming Sect and Sword God Sect's teams had returned from the battlefield. This had been a rare occurrence in the eyes of the public, one which filled them with admiration. The righteous and demonic sides had a friendly spar in every sense of the word. This showed that no matter the differences between demonic and righteous, there would always be something that connected them. At the very least, the disciples' extreme devotion and stalwart mentality demonstrated a shared goal between one another. They all wanted to reach the same point on the cultivation path. The judge eyed both teams and smiled as he announced, in this middle 3-sex challenge stage, Demon Scheming Sect vs. Sword God Sect, the Demon Scheming Sect's 9-membered team had 8 wounded and only 1 standing. Sword God Sect's 10-membered team had all of its disciples defeated. In conclusion, the winner of this challenge is Demon Scheming Sect. Clap. Sharp and loud clapping echoed throughout the arena as the audience expressed their approval and admiration toward Demon Scheming Sect. This fight was fought with honor by both sides. Demon Scheming Sects had been frank and conclusive. How this heroic battle was fought brought these people a sense of awe. The fact they were sects of different paths yet had been so cordial with each other only made this feeling stronger. Zhuo Fan, mainly, was the target of most applauses. Since Demon Scheming Sect managed to score this win based solely on one man, he had done the impossible in turning the tables when he was at his most dangerous moment. It all came to a close with letting off Sword God Sect's team and not humiliating them further, showing his respect for his adversaries. People had begun to understand that this unprecedented expert of the Demon Scheming Sect was not just a killer bent on slaughter. Do you see? Everyone is watching him. Even against an adversary, he shows respect when earned. That is his principle. After so many years, he hasn't changed. Just like he was in the 100-pill meeting, Chu Qingqing sported a wide smile, looking at Zhuo Fan with a soft gaze. The girls were stunned, also finding Zhuo Fan dazzling. The judge motioned for the thunderous applause to stop, and silence reigned again. He chuckled, haha, this fight has been most brief, leaving us with ample time for me to declare this. Let the Superior 3-Sex stage begin. I invite to the arena the 3 great sex teams. Everyone was taken aback. Then they were excited anew. The strongest three sects were about to battle. It would be completely different from the middle three sects and lower three sect stages. This was a fight between Western Land's strongest disciples, which enraptured the audience. "We best go on the arena, junior brother." Wu Qingqiu smiled and said. Yilin looked bored out of his mind but still squeezed a smile. "When we finish off the other two sects, I can finally face off with my fated adversary. I can't wait, ha ha ha." Yan Mo's face twitched. "Yilin, I don't know how strong you are, but don't think for a second Hellion Flame will fall with a simple push. I'm not going to kill you. Just get you out of the way to give us two some room to fight." Yilin sneered, but then he looked in Zhuo Fan's direction with bright eyes. "By the way, we're about to face off, yet we have yet to meet properly. I think I'll drop by to say hello, ha ha ha." Yilin was gone the next second. Yan Mo was shocked by his speed. It was so fast that not even he noticed when he was gone. Turning a baffling look at Wu Qingqiu, the guy only shrugged. As if to say, "Now you get how deadly junior brother is?" Meanwhile, as the superior three sects teams got into the arena, Zhuo Fan and Sword God sects disciples shuffled out, placing Qi Chonglong and the others back to Demon Scheming sect side, when Tao's team gave one last look to Zhuo Fan before leaving. A look that was filled with a burning spirit for battle. That intense gaze left Zhuo Fan speechless, but also expectant. Maybe next time they will show him some interesting developments. Then again, finding such a group of martial fanatics driven so hard on his path towards Tao is a fortune. The days with no adversary can be quite lonely. Then Zhuo Fan's heart shook, staring at Ultimate Clarity sect walking into the arena. He was looking for the youth that gave him the jitters, yet he just couldn't seem to find him. "Zhuo Fan, you fought marvelously." Fiend Yang slapped Zhuo Fan's shoulder with a laugh. "I was so scared back then you'd be too caught up in it and killed Sword God sect's disciples. Thank God you saw reason. You know, we need time to develop. This is not the time to get on the middle three sect's bad side. Having already messed with Heaven Trailing sect, if we had them hating us as well, then we'd be pinned in the middle. But now it's fine, you rotten brat, that you went easy. And you even earned a huge favor from Sword God sect in the process. It might even lead to us becoming allies. Ha ha ha, your twisted and devious reasoning is becoming more convoluted by the day. You're not Steward Zhuo for nothing. You're of deep machination." Fiend Yang praised while slapping his shoulder. Glancing over, Zhuo Fan merely chuckled and sighed. They totally misunderstood him. He didn't put much thought into it. Not to mention he'd be saying goodbye to Demon Scheming sect after he was done with Double Dragon Gathering. So why would he waste his time thinking about the sect's future? He only spared the 10 disciples because he found them much alike. He could see in them his younger self. Sure, he had outstanding success and ease in this life, as well as the endless arts and manuals, along with 9 Serenity's secret records and his skills in arrays and alchemy. But they were all due to his past life as a demonic emperor, who in this world had not been through struggles and pain. His past self was like Xie Tianshang, growing one step at a time against adversity. Fighting in challenges he knew he couldn't win, skirting death more times than he could count. That was how he finally grabbed the title of the head of the 8 emperors. Seeing these kids behaving just like him struck a chord in his heart, and he couldn't help but go easy on them. It's like how a veteran demonic cultivator, being cruel to the extreme, can harbor a trace of empathy. However, thinking of Fiend Yang's words, this was for the best in the end. The more friends, the more paths. Even if he left the sect and did not care for it, there might come a day he would be in trouble and need help. What was the harm in growing this fast friendship anyway? Zhuo Fan's eyes lit up, and he recalled that there was still one promise he had yet to keep. So, he looked around the arena in haste. There, he found Demon Soul sect's team. "Venerable, I'm now going to get the sect an ally. It will help greatly when the Heaven Trailing sect and Mystical Heaven sect come for us." Zhuo Fan shouted, and his eyes shone a cunning light. Fiend Yang raised an eyebrow, following his gaze. Then he lit up as well. "Good, hurry along now. Your actions are always filled with responsibility. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan also chuckled, vanishing the next second and appearing before the Han brothers. Second young Master Han. Third young Master Han. May I ask where your brother is? Zhuo Fan cupped his hands, his face filled with worry. Startled, the two jumped back at his sudden appearance. But seeing it was just Zhuo Fan, they returned the gesture. Second young Master Han spoke. Thank you for your concern. Brother Zhuo, elder brother is still unconscious, but there are no major concerns. That's good. Zhuo Fan nodded and revealed a vial for them. This is a 10th grade pill, Spirit Inception Pill. It can restore his soul. Take it and give it to your brother. He'll be as good as new. The two's hearts jumped, looking at the vial in curiosity. A 10th grade pill was practically a marvel with how rare they saw it. However, for some odd reason, the two's behavior was strange. They wanted it but were reluctant, thus hesitating for a long time. Zhuo Fan frowned, and a strong arm slapped his shoulder just as he was about to inquire. Loud laughter followed it. Brother Zhuo, don't blame them for not taking your pill because they already took my 11th grade, nascent soul pill. I told them that men with integrity aren't greedy. Since their brother is fine, there's no need for taking another person's pill. Zhuo Fan's heart jumped in shock. His face filled with horror. When did he get behind me? Why didn't I sense him? This person's odd aura was making him feel unspeakable danger. Turning his head, Zhuo Fan stared at a familiar pair of eyes. He saw in them a strange flame flashing. As if in reply, Zhuo Fan's eyes also flashed in azure. Brother Zhuo, we finally meet. Ha ha ha, hello, I am Ultimate Clarity Sexy Lin. We will soon be fighting at last. I am most excited for a battle between Sacred Beast Inheritors. Yi Lin sported a creepy smile, his eyes taunting Zhuo Fan. Chapter 680. Sacred Beast Inheritor. Chapter 680. Sacred Beast Inheritor. Proofreader, Papatonks. Sacred Beast Inheritor? Zhuo Fan's eyes widened, and he stared blankly at Yi Lin. This was the first time the words Sacred Beast had been uttered in the mortal domain. On top of that, this guy even said Inheritor. The resonance he felt from the power within him with the ones coming from this guy proved it. He had obtained a Sacred Beast inheritance. Or he's a freaking Sacred Beast to begin with, like young Sanzi. Zhuo Fan's expression became heavy. If he's a Sacred Beast inheritor, that would mean he is like me, but still very much human. But if he's a darn Sacred Beast offspring, does that mean he's a strength freak like young Sanzi? Zhuo Fan gulped, thinking of young Sanzi's outrageous display of power. What's up? Didn't your master ever tell you? You and I are the same, and you shouldn't fear me. Yi Lin saw through his tense heart and chuckled. Zhuo Fan's eyes shook. The same, that means he's still human. This is good. At least he's not outrageously strong. But the moment he noticed his cultivation, his heart sank. First layer ethereal stage. If they were Sacred Beast inheritors, then the one-stage difference in cultivation spelled awful news for him. Frowning, Zhuo Fan remained silent, giving Yi Lin the time to smile. Brother Zhuo, weren't you awesome just now? Where has all your energy gone? Didn't I tell you there's no reason to fear me? It's not logical. Beasts fight. So, what is there for a Sacred Beast inheritor to fear? By the way, who is your master? I noticed you have the purple lightning. Maybe it's... Yi Lin's tone was condescending to the extreme, but Zhuo Fan picked up on the guy's attempt at sounding him out. So he shot back instead. Then, Brother Yi, who is your great master? I asked you first. You answer me, and then I'll answer you. Yi Lin grinned. Zhuo Fan shook his head. I've been fighting for so many days, and yet you still can't tell who he is. Yi Lin's brow shook, looking at Zhuo Fan with a vague smile. Zhuo Fan had been fighting a lot and used plenty of ultimate skills. Yi Lin had a pretty good guess as to who Zhuo Fan's master was, but then Zhuo Fan's skills were also jumbled up. The more Yi Lin saw, the more shocked he was, confused, and got his heart pumping. Just which sacred beast's inheritance does this guy have? One time he used raw power to win, and the next was purple lightning. What's with that space shaking anyway? It's not from the 5 sacred beasts, that's for sure, nor in any of their teachings. Yi Lin was thrown in a loop, so he came to probe him. But it never occurred to him that Zhuo Fan would be so cautious to not leave any room for interpretation. Not even his constant taunts and pestering earned him anything worthwhile. He could only sigh. Are all Ultimate Clarity sect disciples present? The judge's voice came from the arena. Wu Qingqiu cupped his hands, then looked around and saw Yi Lin next to Zhuo Fan. Junior brother, we're about to start. Hurry up and come back. Shrugging, Yi Lin's face sank in disappointment. Then he gave one last smile to Zhuo Fan as his eyes flashed. Brother Zhuo, it won't matter if you try to hide it now. When we are trading blows, I will find out exactly who taught you. Also, just as you know alchemy and arrays, they come easy to me as well, ha ha ha. Yi Lin vanished and reappeared before Wu Qingqiu with a smile. So fast. Everyone who saw this felt their hearts shuddering in shock. Even the exalted looked on in curiosity. By May, I fear the kid's speed has exceeded the limits of ethereal stage. Exalted He Ran spoke. Exalted by May nodded, his eyes trailing to Zhuo Fan. This double dragon gathering sure has many seeds. Wasn't that our objective all along? Ha ha ha. The two exalted exchanged a look and nodded. Zhuo Fan followed Yi Lin's figure with a solemn look. He wanted to see what this unknown sacred beast inheritor was capable of. Was this why he had felt strange since he came to Double Dragon Manor? Because the sacred beast's power made a connection with another. However, the 2 Han brothers came to wake him up from his daydreaming with a bow. Forgive us, Brother Zhuo. As you heard, he had given us a pill already to heal our brother. We could only refuse you, so it's fine. I understand. He was only taunting me by proving what I can do. So can he, but better, just like when 2 savage beasts face each other. They first bare their fangs in a show of strength. I don't mind. Actually, Brother Han, that 11th grade pill would work much faster in healing your brother than my 10th. Everything will be perfect. Zhuo Fan gave them a smile and a nod. The two's eyes lit up, and they thanked Zhuo Fan. Brother Zhuo is a true man of virtue. You have our complete admiration and respect. We thought Brother Zhuo could not help our brother, so we took someone else's pill. Forgive us. Brother Han, what matters is that he is all right. Appearances have little importance. I'm more than appeased as long as Yunfeng is back to normal. And speaking of respect, it is I who should respect Brother Yunfeng's perseverance and courage. Zhuo Fan sighed as he spoke from his heart. The Han brothers were touched. Zhuo Fan is such an open-minded man, so understanding. He truly cares for brother, much more than those damn prancing hypocrites. They exchanged a couple more words of respect, then the brothers left. Once they were gone, Zhuo Fan flicked his eyes back on Yi Lin with a sneer. Little punk, you're still naive if you think you can foil me with a measly pill. Alchemy is but a skill, and with a bit of training, I can cook up 11th grades as well. To people, one's conduct is what matters. You gave them an 11th grade pill, and even set up a condition, making them see it as a trade. It'd be a wonder if they'll ever remember you. While I didn't even give them anything, using just a couple of words to make Demon Soul Sect become friendlier. This is how one should be. Doing it yet not saying it is dumb. Not doing it but saying it is hypocritical. While doing it and saying is the smart way to go. Kid, you might have some sacred beast as a master, but at the end of it all, you're just too naive, humph. Zhuo Fan looked at Yi Lin with sharp eyes and flicked the pill vial in his hand before it vanished. Heh, you saved me a pill. Achoo. As the 3 sex teams in the arena were drawing lots, Yi Lin sneezed so hard he almost met the floor. He rubbed his nose, thinking, who's talking behind my back? No matter how much he looked around, but found nothing. Then he saw the big guy in front pointing at him and criticizing. Yi Lin's face fell. Ultimate Clarity Sect Disciple, your turn, the judge reminded him. Yi Lin nodded. He put his hand in the box and drew a slip, number 2. He's my opponent. That's practically a win. A loud voice sounded, startling Yilin. Looking over, he saw that same big guy going wild with joy. Zhao Dezhu slapped him hard on the shoulder, laughing, "Junior brother, your luck is good, getting there weakest. This just assures us 2 more points. Of course, I'm in the 4th layer of ethereal stage while he is still in the 1st. It makes no sense for me to lose, ha ha ha." The big guy was immensely proud of himself. Wu Qingqiu shook his head. Ignorance sure is bliss, right before the end. If Zhua Fan was demon scheming sex freak, then Yilin was ultimate clarity sex freak. What made it worse was their similar nature and their shared love for playing pretend. It was the easiest way for the prey to take the bait. Walking over to the big guy, Yilin spoke coldly, "Hey, did you just mock me? What if I did? What's with the grand ultimate clarity sect, the best sect around, coming here with a fresh ethereal stage disciple? How is such a team worthy of their title of the strongest sect?" The big guys sneered. Zhao Dezhu added oil to the fire. "Hey, you saw him just now, his speed. There's at least something to him. Senior brother, there's barely any place to run on the small stage. No matter how fast he is. What good will that do? Maybe he'll show his mettle in the team battle?"
Could be.
If a little rat like him starts scurrying around the place, messing things, it will be bad news, ha ha ha. As the 2 talked with gross lack of respect for the 3rd wheel, Yilin felt his face twitch. In other words, you must have gotten the devil's luck to have picked me for an opponent. Right? As you wish. Yilin's eyes flashed with bloodthirst, stomping away in anger. Wu Qingqiu sighed. The kid is doomed. Chapter 681. Wu Qingqiu's Fury. Chapter 681. Wu Qingqiu's Fury. Proofreader, Papatonks. With everyone having drawn their numbers, the first round of singles was between Universal Righteous Sect and Ultimate Clarity Sect. The first battle that would start this fierce clash would be between Ultimate Clarity Sect's best talent in Western lands, Wu Qingqiu in the 6th layer of ethereal stage, and Universal Righteous Sect's most naturally self-righteous disciple, Zhao Dezhu in the 5th layer of ethereal stage. The 2 eyeballed each other, then cupped their hands. Wu Qingqiu started with a smile. "Brother Zhao, after you." "Thank you for your kindness, Brother Wu." Zhao Dezhu replied with the same courtesy. Then he made a sign followed by a palm strike, quasi-earth-ranked martial art, universal palm. Boom. Wind blew out of nowhere into a fierce gale as a gigantic yellow palm crashed like heaven and earth crumbling. It went for Wu Qingqiu with the power to take his body back to the earth where it belonged. The audience gasped in shock and thrilled at the show. Such is a Superior 3 sect. One strike can change the landscape. Zhao Dezhu was seen as one of the best talents in the Superior 3 sects, worthy of his name. Even the exalted double dragons lit up at his feet, making them take out the roster. Ha ha ha, just in time. Brother Zhao is capable, worthy of all the preparations I made for today. Wu Qingqiu laughed, feeling like he had just found a worthy adversary to clash with. Among the peers in Western lands, there had to be less than 3 people that could fight him, with Zhao Dezhu being one of them. Now, in this fight, this best talent of Western lands found the trip worthwhile. Wu Qingqiu laughed because of it as he did his signs. Bright clear sky, spinning ether.
Whoosh.
Wu Qingqiu's palm stuck out in front of him and rotated. Something like a spinning wheel was felt, as if it was there. Despite having no form for anyone to see, its power was unmistakable. Go! Wu Qingqiu flicked his hand, and the wheel spun into the air, facing the huge palm. That fierce storm was sucked into the wheel and drifted off in the form of a gentle breeze. Finally, the wheel and the palm made contact in a terrible explosion. The huge palm shook and then it scattered. Only that wheel kept spinning and enlarging as it ultimately faded, leaving behind the bright blue sky. Such a strong move. It matches perfectly with the world's transitions. Wu Qingqiu is indeed the best talent in Western lands. His insights in the Tao are deeper than his opponents. Exalted by Mei praised, opening the roster and writing on it, these two are heroes of their generation. Today they have earned their place among the others on this list. Exalted by Mei didn't get to finish writing their names as Exalted Hei Ran waved with a smile. Let's not be hasty. We should enjoy the show first, ha ha ha. Startled, by Mei eyed the other, then chuckled. Hey, old man, you're so old, yet you still like to have fun? You just don't want to miss anything, ha ha. Brother Zhao, it's my turn now. Here, take this. Wait. Wu Qingqiu was excited to pit himself against his opponent, but Zhao Dezhu waved with a smile and a gesture of respect. A great talent like Brother Wu, I am not worthy of stopping. You don't have to continue. I admit defeat. What? Wu Qingqiu shook from the shock, then his face grew dark from fury. Brother Zhao, what is the meaning of this? Brother Wu is too strong that I am in awe. The only option is to concede. Please do not make it hard for me. Zhao Dezhu bowed in respect. The entire audience was stumped. The two had only just begun, and one was giving up just like that. He didn't even try his best. Wu Qingqiu's brow shook with anger. Brother Zhao, that strike of yours was only at half power. Why would you give up so fast? Brother Wu must be kidding. Even if I unleashed the quasi-earth-ranked martial art at full power, Brother Wu would still cancel it. I am more than aware of the gap between us, and I don't wish for us to delay the inevitable. Zhao Dezhu quickly turned to the judge with a bow. Elder, I concede.
Please announce it.
The judge held his beard and said, You have only clashed once. It's still too soon to tell. Does Elder have to see blood being spilled to call it off? Zhao Dezhu cut off the judge with a rushed speech. The judge huffed and flicked his hand. I haven't seen a winner, but since you insist on backing out, I will help you. In Universal Righteous Sect versus Ultimate Clarity Sect, the first match goes to Ultimate Clarity Sect. The people looked at one another as they devolved into an uproar. They had barely fought, and it was already over. We don't see the winner, so how could they? The audience was perplexed. Only a few figures could read more into it and sneer at Zhao Dezhu. Humph, does he want to keep his strength for when he goes against Demon Scheming Sect and Sword God Sect? With a snort, Yan Mo showed a mocking smile. How is this Universal Righteous Sect even worthy of being a Superior 3 sect? They're nothing but cowards and a disgrace. The other disciples were lost, with Yumei asking, Senior brother, just what is he up to? You still can't see it? Universal Righteous Sect's scheme involves focusing on the challenge stage completely. So now they're saving their energy and cutting their losses so as to go all out against the challengers, Sword God Sect and Demon Scheming Sect. Yan Mo's eyes flashed. While their plan is great, this action goes against a cultivator's essence, pushing back against all adversity. Using such a cheap trick would get the exalted furious. Yan Mo looked above the audience at the highest spots. The other disciples did the same, in time to see the two ashen. Using the rules and the lineups to one's advantage is a basic strategy. With small tricks, one can turn it all around. Exalted Hei Ran spoke coldly. Zhao Dezhu is very sharp, so much so that he lost his path. Even the middle 3 sects know cultivators emphasize character to persevere in pursuing Tao. But a talent from a Superior 3 sect using petty tricks? He's no different than a mortal. Indeed. I've been too rash just now. How fortunate I didn't write him in as well. He is a man overencumbered by fame and fortune. This is as far as he'll go. Exalted by Mei sighed and shook his head. He lifted the roster and wrote just one name, Wu Qingqiu. This was how the best talent in Universal Righteous Sect, Zhao Dezhu, lost his chance to enter Double Dragon Manor. On the stage, Zhao Dezhu was oblivious of this cruel outcome and bowed in respect. Brother Wu, even if we don't fight, we all know the outcome. I am not your match. It's best to save the energy for vanquishing demons instead. We are both righteous. Brother Wu should understand my pain. Screw your understanding. Wu Qingqiu was so pissed off that he resorted to crude language, Holding back in a single match is an insult to your opponent and an even more shame to you. You're not fit to be a cultivator. Fighting you will only make me sick. I'd much rather ask Demon Soul Sect's eldest young master or Sword God Sect's Wen Tao for a spar than waste my time with you. Flicking his sleeve, Wu Qingqiu left the stage. Zhao Dezhu took a deep breath, feeling solitude from hearing the audience being against him as well. Getting back to Universal Righteous Sect's team, the best ass-kisser that ever lived polished his trade. Senior brother, calm your anger. Senior brother is doing it all to stop the demons from succeeding, thinking only of the greater good. How could they ever understand senior brother's pain? Yeah, they may be from righteous sects but can't see evil when meet it, being in cahoots instead. Senior brother is, however, making it clear who the demons are. Senior brother is the model example of righteousness among this sea of hypocrites. Zhao Dezhu looked around and nodded. You're the only ones who understand me. Don't worry. Even if they have mistaken my intent and despise me for it, I will stand strong. Zhao Dezhu, will definitely grasp victory. Roar. Everyone gave him thunderous support. We'll follow the same plan, getting as many points as possible in the singles round. If you can't score, save your energy after a couple of hits and concede. Ultimate Clarity Sect is a righteous sect and won't resort to killing. It won't drag down our score as much as abstaining either. Even if we end up as the last of the superior 3 sects, as long as we block Demon Scheming Sect and Sword God Sect, we win. Zhao Dezhu told them their role and looked at the big guy among them. Junior brother, next you will be fighting their weakest. Ultimate Clarity Sect is very strong, with everyone in the 4th layer ethereal stage at the least. Only that kid is a fresh ethereal stage cultivator. While he might be fast on his feet than normal, your soul won't lose to mere speed. Those are points ripe for the taking. You must come back with them. The big guy grinned, looking at Yilin in the distance with a sneer. Don't worry. I'll make sure to give him a proper greeting and give senior brother his honor back. He was totally oblivious to Yilin looking back with the same sinister look. Frickin' prick. You dare curse me? Me? While the true mastermind, Zhuo Fan, was casually overlooking these two bitter enemies about to tear into each other. Chapter 682, The Terrible Yilin. Chapter 682, The Terrible Yilin. Proofreader, Papatonks. Universal Righteous Sect vs. Ultimate Clarity Sect's second singles match. Disciples on the stage. The judge looked at the two sides and shouted. The big guy from Universal Righteous Sect snickered as he strutted on the stage, brimming with ill-placed confidence. Yilin was doing the same, sporting a wide grin, cheerfully walking up. Only his eyes were flashing with resolve. His fellow disciples noticed it and knew this opponent was a goner. Yan Mo and Zhuo Fan stared intently now that he was fired up to figure him out and his strength. Begin. Looking at the two disciples, the judge shouted and jumped back to leave the playing field to them. Laughing, the big guy cupped his hands in the cockiest attitude possible. We may be on the righteous path and might come from the head of the 9 sects, but all is free on the battlefield. Now that we are here, I will not hold back, ha ha ha. Scumbag. The audience looked at him with nothing but contempt, and their opinion of the Universal Righteous Sect fell lower. With their strongest backing out when the going went tough, then to see their next match acting all high and mighty against the weak, they criticized it harshly. Is this the style of the Universal Righteous Sect? Thank you for opening our eyes, Humph. Yilin sneered as well, but kept his words to himself. He merely flicked his hand for the other guy to start. The big guy's face fell seeing that Yilin couldn't see his kindness. Of course he'd be pissed being looked down on like that. So he raved, don't think you can act all high and mighty because you're from Ultimate Clarity Sect. On this stage, no one will spare you. The big guy shouted and was instantly covered in an earthen glow. Around him formed the image of a huge mountain, making the air on the stage heavy, with the rock pieces falling to the ground. Even Yilin shook from the pressure and the multiplied weight. It felt like even moving his leg involved much greater effort. An elemental soul? Gravity? Yen Mo frowned, nodding at the big guy. While obnoxious, he at least has the strength to back it up. For him to have an elemental soul, that of gravity, he would be a strong character in the ethereal stage. He can now cripple Yilin's speed with this power. However, is that guy's speed the only thing weird about him? Yen Mo's face was sure of it. Wu Qingqiu looked on with some hatred left from the previous match. He mocked, for one to take out their soul right at the start can mean two things. Either he's going all out or confident of success. However, with universal righteous sex rotten style, I bet it's the latter. Too bad they miscalculated this time around. Taking out your soul before my junior brother is suicidal. Ultimate Clarity Sect's other disciples were taken aback and shook their heads. It was the first time their senior brother spoke such rude comments. He's still pissed from before. It wasn't their senior brother's fault, but that Zhao Dezhu. If you want to quit, then don't go on stage. The stage is for fighting. Senior brother is kind and would never take a life even in a life and death situation. But you just flicked your hands a couple of times and hopped off stage? How much of a clown are you? No wonder senior brother is fuming. They moved on from Wu Qingqiu's livid face and turned to Yilin's fight. Their senior brother was pissed, and none wanted to get burned from it. Yilin's mood wasn't any better either. Seeing the big guy showing off his fangs, Yilin had only one thought. Die. The big guy saw Yilin standing there in silence and mistook it for fear. Haha, I can't move, can you? You might be fast, but with me around, you're finished. Beg, I might be kind enough to spare you, The big guy snickered. Universal Righteous Sex team did the same. They could practically feel the honor they lost in the last match returning. Die somewhere else, you waste. I'm not here for you. Yilin shouted and pointed. Whoosh. A golden flame appeared the size of a droplet. It shot for the big guy and entered his body before he could even react. What followed was a bang. The golden flame broke out from the inside. The big guy was turned to ashes before he could wail in agony, now lost to the wind. Even his soul faded away, gone all the same. After the golden glow faded, the stage was empty, like the big guy was never there to begin with, erased from existence.
Ugh.
The cocky Universal Righteous Sect now looked stumped and choking on their previous arrogance. They looked on with empty gazes, still out of it. The audience wasn't faring much better, gasping and frightened. What just happened? In an instant, a fourth-layer ethereal stage expert went from showboating to nothing at all. Was he killed? That was too fast. I didn't even see it. Hellion Flame's team shivered at such a scene as well. Yen Mo now saw this guy's strength. He who only called Zhuofan his only true adversary. He's a freak just like him. Yen Mo's face grew hard, looking over at Zhuofan, only to see him just as stunned. No one here had expected the little guy's strength. It was insane. Even the Exalted thought so. This double dragon gathering is freaking messed up.
Now there are two monsters around.
Yen Mo felt bitter as he shook his head. Wu Qingqiu was lost as well at such a display. Ever since junior brother entered ethereal stage, I never once saw him attack. Now that I do, I can barely recognize him. Just who in the 9 sects can stand up to him in battle? Chance had it Wu Qingqiu looked at Zhuofan when he said it. He saw him shocked still and sighed. Maybe not even this fated adversary can match junior brother. Universal Righteous Sect versus Ultimate Clarity Sect's second match goes to Ultimate Clarity Sect. The judge came out from his stupor and announced the results. The audience gasped and cried in excitement. After Zhuofan, now Western Lands had another freak that entered their eyes. This shows the Western Lands will become stronger than ever. Ignoring the hubbub around him, Yilin walked down board. He paused halfway, staring at Zhuofan and giving him a taunting gesture. He pointed at the stage and shouted, "I'll be waiting for you right there."
Whoosh.
Everyone looked at Zhuofan, and their eyes lit up. Those monsters up and declared war. Who will the best in Western Lands belong to in the end, Zhuofan or Yilin? Or they may as well become the next exalted double dragons. The people were wild with excitement at the prospect of a good fight. Even the exalted double dragons were looking forward to it. After thousands of years, the Western lands finally saw talents of Dan Xingshun's caliber. It was just out of their imagination. It was going to be two of them. These two old guys were getting interested as well. Bai Mei was excited. Hey Rand, Zhuo Fan is a demonic cultivator. He's yours. Yilin is a righteous cultivator, so I'll take care of his training and turning him into something great. When we taught Sheng, we almost got him jumbled up with righteous and demonic teachings. This time, we finally have a successor each. Exalted He Ran felt at peace. Bai Mei thought of something and said, Old man, no matter who wins among these two kids fight, we will get them to fight once every year. This is the best way to see the fruits of our teachings. What do you say? Even at your age, you're still so obsessed with fighting. Exalted He Ran snickered, but then he nodded in interest, though I must admit, you came with a good proposal. When Sheng came, we had no way of knowing which of us taught him better. This time, we each get one, and we'll see who's better. But this way, even if they'll be our disciples, how will we explain it to their sex? What explaining? Other candidates stay in the Double Dragon Manor for some decades to train. Only those two will be having an indefinite stay. We'll only let them go if their sects are in trouble. What can Ultimate Clarity Sect and Demon Scheming Sect dare ask of us? Doing it like that sounds more like we're stealing them. We are the leaders of Western lands. We have never done something so vile. Exalted He Ran chuckled. Exalted Bai Mei mocked, we haven't because there never was a worthy seed. Now that we found two of them to boot, are you that willing to give up, He Ran? Never. Exalted He Ran shook his head. The two exalted shared a look and burst out laughing. The saints weren't evil, just that they had yet to find something worthy to commit evil for. This is why the saying goes, every man has the capacity for evil inside their being. Now, even the honorable and revered exalted would dare commit crimes just for the sake of two geniuses. Chapter 683. Clarity Domain. Chapter 683. Clarity Domain. Proofreader, Papatonks. The sacred beast behind him is the most violent of the 5 ancient sacred beasts, the decimating dragon ancestor. Zhuo Fan closed his eyes in thought, recalling the 9 Serenity's secret records and finding out what beast had Yilin's back. Yes, that little flame was none other than the heaven-refining, decimating golden flame of primal chaos. Zhuo Fan's expression was heavy. Legend had it that the primal chaos split into yin and yang, which created the world. This led to everything existing in 2 versions, yin and yang, flames included. If vaulting Kunpeng gave him a soft, yin flame, the azure flame, then the decimating golden flame was a strong, yang flame. When it came to achieving ethereal with one soul, the best was a soft flame. The azure flame was truly remarkable in this regard. But this strong flame was better when it came to fighting and destruction. So while Kunpeng was called vaulting, keeping the world order and nourishing all living things, the dragon ancestor was his antithesis, pure destruction. As the 2 flames mix and endear each other, it encompasses life and death with their every move. Thus, Zhuo Fan and Yilin might have gotten a sacred beast inheritance, but one was focused on cultivation, while the other was set on brute force. Regarding cultivation speed, Zhuo Fan was certain that if he focused on training alone, he would catch up to Yilin in 5 years at the latest. However, here and now was a competition, one that had him at a disadvantage. His gentle azure flame stood no chance against that almighty golden one. They were all part of the primal chaos, but it was the same as fighting the sword with a pen, simply impossible. Luck had it that he wasn't entirely hopeless. While azure flame lacked fighting power, the purple lightning made up for it. He could clash against the golden flame with this. Though, as Yilin saw, Zhuo Fan's powers were so messed up inside him. Having not taken one particular side further, The purple lightning fell short in power, even worse than the azure flame. For crying out loud, I have the 9 Serenity's secret records, the greatest secrets ever known, at my fingertips, yet I'm still nothing more than a jack of all trades. Now that he was facing a true expert, these weapons all fell short. If I lose now, I'd be thrown into the pits of despair. Shaking his head, Zhuofan felt like crying, but he didn't have any tears. He took a moment to calm down before beginning to analyze his chances. They were looking very small at the moment. Yilin's simple pointing just pulverized a 4th-layer ethereal stage expert. It was obvious he took the golden flame to an almost perfect level. Coupled with all kinds of art from the sacred domain that the dragon gave him, the fight would spell grave danger for Zhuofan. As he was deep in thought, Ultimate Clarity Sect and Universal Righteous Sect singles round came to a close. To begin with, Universal Righteous Sect wanted to keep their strength up. Then when Yilin killed one of their own, they were even more scared of fighting. This made it so the Universal Righteous Sect lost all their spirit in the next matches, making them lose almost all fights with Ultimate Clarity Sect. The same happened when they fought Hellion Flame too. However, Hellion Flame was not as gentle as the Ultimate Clarity Sect. They fought to the death. Universal Righteous Sect's disciples had no time to even say surrender before they were done in. With such disastrous casualties, the Universal Righteous Sect was forced to forfeit before they even walked up there. To top it all off, they even had the nerve to curse demonic cultivators for being despicable and ruthless. Though having already seen their hypocrisy, the audience sighed at how much humanity had fallen. When Hellion Flame and Ultimate Clarity Sect fought out of destiny or sheer dumb luck, the first match was between their captains. Yan Emo walked on the stage, filled with thirst for battle. Wu Qingqiu smiled at his determination, finally relieving that fight's anger. Yan Emo, you're not going to yield after 2 moves like that, Zhao Dezhu, are you? Wu Qingqiu stared Yan Emo in the eye. Yan Mo's face was hard as he snapped, as if, who the hell do you take me for? You dare compare me with that coward? Wu Qingqiu, today we are going to fight to the death. My thoughts exactly. Come. Ha ha ha, Wu Qingqiu laughed, filled with mettle and excitement. Yan Emo grinned as he started making gestures. Suddenly, a circle of 2 snakes biting their tails formed behind him. The red and blue flames were constantly changing through their interactions, unleashing a scorching heat that would burn anything. The judge cried out, AA Domain Soul? It is such a high grade that not even the barrier can contain it. What power! The exalted double dragons were stunned as well. They did not think this double dragon gathering would have so many promising talents. While they did not match Yilin and Zhuofan's true potential, the others weren't just props either, each a genius in their own way. Yan Mo, for example, had the yin-yang union flame. The exalted knew that even with it, it was truly hard to keep the yin and yang balanced. But for Yan Mo to not only do that but even unleash a domain to such a stable degree, he was truly a rare talent. Wu Qingqiu felt the bubbling heat rising higher and higher from the 2 flames. He smiled. Yan Mo, you've released your soul right from the start. Is it to go all out or declare yourself the winner? You're not going to fight and dash, are you? Hey, I'm not suicidal, nor am I that confident in beating you. But on such a rare occasion, I want to let loose and fight you with all I have. Yes, let loose. I may be a righteous cultivator, but I just love how forward demonic cultivators are. Ha ha ha, Wu Qingqiu laughed and made a sign himself in his excitement. Wu Qingqiu squinted and turned still. Then, black and white spread from his feet as they rotated, dissipating the scorching heat around as it did. The people watched in shock as a yin-yang symbol took shape under Wu Qingqiu as it spun and spun. Yan Mo's fire domain faded slowly once inside this symbol and returned to normal. Another domain soul. Yan Mo's face grew grave. Ultimate clarity, sex clarity domain.
Correct.
A soul's form is based on the cultivation method, but it can also base itself on outside things. Just like how Brother Yan's soul is based on demonic fires, that of yin-yang union flame. But Ultimate Clarity Sect is focused on clarity, not allowing external objects to affect the soul form. So, whenever the soul forms, the disciples of Ultimate Clarity Sect go to the secret realm of our sect, where they absorb the energy of heaven and earth to form the purest clarity domain. Grinning, Wu Qingqiu spoke, I'm sure Brother Yin knows about our secret realm as well. That is where the energy of heaven and earth is interlocked. Forming one soul there would make one no less strong than Brother Yan's. That's why, Brother Yin Mo, do take care, ha ha ha. Yen Mo snorted. Enough small talk. I've heard of Ultimate Clarity Sect's secret realm, but so what? The strong are always strong for a reason. What could a weakling ever gain from going into that realm anyway? I only care about you, Wu Qingqiu. I only want to defeat you. No matter how strong or weak your soul is, I'll give my all in fighting you. Brother Yen, you flatter me. Wu Qingqiu smiled, cupping his hands. Since Brother Yen holds me in such high regard, I can't disappoint, and will reply in kind. Wu Qingqiu held his palms together and made a sign. The Taiji symbol spun faster and faster. Yen Mo laughed, and his hands went through his gestures. The two snakes also rotated faster. Then let's fight to our heart's content. With a bang, the two domains clashed. Yen Mo's side was bubbling with power in blue and red colors, while Wu Qingqiu's side was traced by a cooling breeze, peaceful and serene. But everyone could see that this breeze was deadly. Infernal flood. Yen Mo's hands stopped and shouted. The red flames suddenly turned into a churning sea as it shot for Wu Qingqiu's domain. The clash pushed the clarity domain on the verge of collapse. Tongues of scorching flames slipped into the domain, and Wu Qingqiu's surroundings began to heat up. Frowning, Wu Qingqiu pointed with both hands, and countless blue edges shot for the burning inferno. Calming sword.
Ugh.
With groans, those blue edges entered the world of fire and vanished. But soon after, the inferno rumbled one last time before it ebbed. Its rage subsided, and soon, it became still as it blended into the clarity domain. Yen Mo's face was hard. Zhuo Fan was watching the fight from the side, and his eyes shone with curiosity. Chapter 684, Epiphany. Chapter 684, Epiphany. Proofreader, Papatonks. In any soul domain battle, each domain clashed with the other for supremacy, as no domain would allow another to exist in the same space. It was either one or the other. When the domain fell, so did the soul. Yet, just now, Yen Mo used the yin-yang flames to strike at Wu Qingqiu's clarity domain. The latter did not meet with an equal force, and instead took that power for himself. It was the same effect employed by the demon transformation art. Zhuo Fan recalled the bitter experience in the Lightning Canyon. Even by using the azure flame to protect himself, he still ended up with purple lightning burrowing deep inside him. To absorb this purple lightning through the demon transformation art, he had to use Qiaoer's egg as the medium. Since it worked once, maybe it will work against Yilin? No matter how amazing the decimating golden flame was, there was no way it could top the purple lightning from the Lightning Canyon. He was not looking to block that power but to take it within and make it his own. Isn't this the same reason I chose the cultivation method in the first place? How could I forget it? However, this was only a guess. To get some hard evidence, he needed to do some tests. The last time was a static array that launched automatic attacks while he would be facing a live human being who could change his attacks at any moment. This epiphany acted as a reminder. Zhuo Fan's eyes narrowed as he watched the two fight, constantly thinking. Yin-yang flame circle. Yen Mo changed his attack. With a sign, two flaming pythons, one red and one blue, circled the clarity domain from each side. They soon turned like the ring of snakes behind Yen Mo, spinning with the clarity domain in its center. Yen Mo's sign changed again, and the burning heat soared into a huge firewall, bearing down closer on the clarity domain. One could see how the yin-yang flames were eating away at it. The sizzling, piercing flames were forcing the domain into a corner. From the outside, it looked like the domain was swallowed whole by flames. Wu Qingqiu frowned and made quick gestures. The taiji symbol underneath spun faster as strong wind blades shot for the yin-yang flames, making them scatter. Mo worked to stabilize the flames. Just then, Wu Qingqiu also worked to break through, shouting, "The great world holds everything and has everything, world harmony."
Whoosh. Wu Qingqiu spread his arms.
The clarity domain collapsed and the walls of flames flooded in without restraint, reaching Wu Qingqiu in a blink and swallowing him whole. However, the taiji symbol beneath Wu Qingqiu began spreading within the flames, covering all of Mo's domain. Mo narrowed his eyes, understanding what Wu Qingqiu was after, and shouted, "Too little, too late." A hum was the only sign of what had happened. The taiji symbol started shining in black and white as it spun around. It was like a huge sea, spinning everything it contained, even the raging flames, as it neutralized them. Mo hurriedly made signs to regain control of the flames, but it was just too late. His entire flame domain was already taken by the clarity domain and out of his hands. Looking at the bright sky above, Mo shook his head and sighed. The circle of snakes behind him kept rotating, yet it lost the vigor it had at the start. "Brother Yen, you let me win." Wu Qingqiu grinned and cupped his hands. Mo sighed and shook his head. "I still lost. Wu Qingqiu, you truly are the best talent in Western lands." "Brother Yen is too kind. To be honest, I was starting to sweat when our domain clashed. I could only win against Brother Yen, thanks to luck." "Faker." Mo's face twitched. "You don't have to pat me on the back. I can see it myself.
You still held back against me."
"It's because the path you follow isn't that of brute strength. You use softness to grasp victory in the last moments. Otherwise, I would have been seriously injured when my domain collapsed." Wu Qingqiu chuckled. "Brother Yen, I admire your candid nature. However, you are wrong about one thing. I have long since lost the title of the best talent in Western lands." Wu Qingqiu turned to Yilin, then to Zhuofan. "I just can't help but wonder who among the two will be it. They both walk the path of power, showing no mercy. You'll be thrown back in pain and defeat if you fight them. Going easy on them will be your weakness. You saw it yourself. Your junior brother killed someone in the first strike. Zhuofan also obliterated souls without remorse. He even left me with a heavy wound back then. They are men of power, not someone a modest gentleman can face." Mo looked at the two as he said this. Wu Qingqiu chuckled and shook his head. Unlike Yilin and Zhuofan, he was an orthodox, righteous disciple, always conducting himself with courtesy. They did not have such restraints. He reckoned he wouldn't last 3 moves with them. However, he was decent and not pedantic, earning the respect of many. Even Mo, his strongest adversary, respected him.
"But,"
Mo spoke, "you will always be the best talent in Western lands to me. Those two are monsters, not humans." Mo left the stage, not even waiting for the judge to announce his withdrawal. Unlike Zhao Deju's, his was different. He fought with all he had, and would have staked his life if it meant winning. But he knew that not even that was enough against the opponent's domain. It was better to quit ahead. Watching Mo go, Wu Qingqiu nodded. He's anything but nice, having defiled and committed crimes, but he is a man, after all. The judge also watched him go with a nod, then proclaimed it Ultimate Clarity Sect's win. The next matches between Ultimate Clarity Sect and Hellion Flame continued. Maybe it was because of the friendliness the two captains showed in their fight, or today was filled with bizarre occurrences, since the matches were fought with all their power but were akin to sparring rather than death battles. Ultimate Clarity Sect's disciples' character was mild, that was certain, but even when the Hellion Flame's disciples won, they did not finish them off. They not only showed respect but were even lenient. And so, the singles round ended without a single casualty, despite some sporting heavy wounds. As for the two sects, they had no feud with each other. In fact, they joined efforts in mocking the Universal Righteous sect. Zhao Deju's team felt like wailing about the injustice. "What's wrong with our sect? Haven't we given up without a fight? Why are you looking at us like that? For God's sake, we're innocent here." Next were the three sects' team battles. This would be glorious, a fight that would include the best sects in Western lands. But since a freak like Yilin was among them, the gap was huge. In the Ultimate Clarity sect against Hellion Flame, Wu Qingqiu kept Yan Mo busy, while Yilin dealt with the other 9 easily. Yan Mo saw this and admitted defeat. As if to copy Zhuofan's challenge when he fought 10 by himself, Yilin issued the same proposal. He wanted to finish off Hellion Flame by himself, but Wu Qingqiu refused him. He wasn't afraid Yilin would end up doing something wrong, but Yan Mo's self-respect would be crushed. So that was how it turned to 2 versus
10.
Wu Qingqiu kept him busy, while Yilin dealt with the rest. Yan Mo was also aware of this, though not in the least pleased. He knew Yilin was just as scary as Zhuofan, if not more. He had no way to defeat the guy, so he could only bottle it in. As for Universal Righteous Sect's attitude, it did not fail to be within the people's expectations, still trying to save their strength. When fighting the Ultimate Clarity sect, they gave up after several exchanges, while showing their kind side. This only worked to enrage Wu Qingqiu. He would have beaten the hell out of Zhao Deju by now if not for his gentle character. The same couldn't be said for Yilin. "Our sect isn't here to play along.
Fight if you want to.
If not, get the hell out of here. If you start playing around, I'll kill you." Before Zhao Deju could even speak, Yilin shot 3 golden flames into 3 disciples, killing them on the spot. Zhao Deju was feeling pure regret right now. Those 3 were among the best on his team. But he had no choice since he feared Yilin and Ultimate Clarity sect's power. In the next fight with Hellion Flame, Universal Righteous sect just quit before they started. Ultimate Clarity sect had Yilin, who took 3 of his best men, and now he had Hellion Flame, who was itching to tear into them. Zhao Deju feared he wouldn't even have the time to announce his surrender. This was how the Superior 3 sect stage came to a close in a single day. Ultimate Clarity sect and Hellion Flame fought hard, ending with both sides bruised and weary, while Universal Righteous sect kept most of their strength based on tricks alone. Their targets were the upstarts, Demon Scheming sect, and Sword God sect. Chapter 685, Danqing Shun's Request. Chapter 685, Danqing Shun's Request. Proofreader, Papatonks. The Superior 3 sect stage had ended with Ultimate Clarity sect coming first, Hellion Flame second, and Universal Righteous sect third. The Superior 3 sect's challenge stage will take place 3 days from now. That is all for today. The judge looked around the arena and waved the people away before he left. The 2 gatekeepers closed the dimension door as well. The people were in high spirits as they chatted over today's fights on their way back to their lodgings. From time to time, eyes darted at Demon Scheming sect and Sword God sect's teams, excited for what was about to come. They wanted to see if these underdogs had the gall to challenge the Superior 3 sect's might. Watching from above, Zhuofan's face was heavy. His eyes remained on Ultimate Clarity sect's Yilin. Yilin felt the gaze and looked up with a smile as he worded something. "See you in 3 days." Then he followed Ultimate Clarity sect's team out. Taking a deep breath, Zhuofan pondered. For Demon Scheming sect to have reached such a rank, it was already a huge success, and there was no real need to keep challenging. Yilin was a freak of nature as well, having the sacred beast decimating dragon ancestor. With him around, of course, Yilin's alchemy and arrays were no less than Zhuofan's. He'd be a freak even in the sacred domain. Not even Zhuofan was confident he could win against this freak. The best choice right now was just not to fight. However, for some odd reason, the sacred beast powers inside of them echoed. His heart even thumped at the prospects of a fight. He had to do it. Fleeing now would fill him with nothing but regret. As men who inherited the power of sacred beasts, they had to find out who was the one on top. Squinting, Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with battle spirit, so excited his blood was boiling. It was just as when two beasts met, as if fate itself made them rivals. Oh, does Brother Zhuo feel fear? Zhuo Fan was startled by the voice, turning to see Wen Tao standing behind him. Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow. Where do I look scared to you? Wen Tao gave him another look and smiled. Sorry, I just saw Brother Zhuo shaking and thought you feared ultimate clarity, sex little monster. Now I see that Brother Zhuo doesn't feel fear but excitement. Haha, that's great. Regardless of the outcome, just going all out against a real expert is a man's fortune. It will be of great help in understanding one's path. Unlike us, I fear we would have to stop the fighting here. Such a shame. Zhuo Fan looked at him oddly and frowned. Your middle three sex head. In singles. You already know why. While you went easy that time, our souls are seriously injured. Even with some miracle pills, we'll still need more than a year to heal. Wen Tao shook his head with a bitter smile, still somewhat dissatisfied at the result. Zhuo Fan knew they wanted to challenge the superior three sex too, but they had given their all in the middle three sex challenge stage and came up heavily wounded. They had nothing to offer against the superior three sections. Seeing their great power, they were ready to challenge the superior three sections. But before they could, they knew they had to withdraw, thus the disappointment. Even so, they did not shirk from going all out in the middle three sex challenge stage. Their target and principles clashed, and to hold true to their sword was admirable. Zhuo Fan sighed. It's a real shame for Sword God sect. Ha ha ha, there's nothing bad about it since we have lost in a straightforward fight. We accept the defeat and know that we aren't strong enough. Wen Tao laughed, then looked Zhuo Fan in the eye. Brother Zhuo, no one has ever climbed to a superior three-sect position in thousands of years. We can no longer shake them. Now it's up to you guys. Ha ha ha, I only came by to encourage you, and not falter despite that Yilin's power. By stepping down, you will only make it much harder to reach your goal in the future. Cultivators, on these lands where they pursue Tao, every step must be taken without falter. Zhuo Fan smiled and nodded earnestly. Thank you for the words of wisdom. I'm sure Brother Zhuo knows these better than me. I just came for a chat, ha ha ha. Maybe there was no need for it. Wen Tao waved and left with a smile. Seeing the mannered figure walk away, Zhuo Fan smiled. He knew that Yi Lin challenged Zhuo Fan and came to encourage him. While unnecessary, Zhuo Fan was still feeling good from it, though he didn't have much faith in his success either.
Whoosh.
Just then, a black figure flashed in front of him and was taken away without even being able to mount any resistance. When he got ground under his feet again, he found himself facing the best in Western lands, Dan Shin. Only this time, he had a seriously dark and enraged look. Zhuo Fan's heart froze, and sweat poured from his scalp. What the hell? There's no way he found out I was the one who took the sacred weapon. He can't be here for that. Feeling so utterly helpless against Dan Shin, Zhuo Fan's heart was filled with unease. Killing him would be like killing a chicken. A snap was all it took. Zhuo Fan was becoming anxious, though he managed to keep a straight face as he asked, Senior, how come it's you again? Why did you capture me this time? Looking around, he found himself surrounded by trees and grass, so peaceful and quiet. So perfect for committing murder and theft. Zhuo Fan grew tenser as he gave a forced smile. Senior, why would you suddenly take me away? Did I offend Senior in any way? No, it's those two coots sealing up the realm. Slapping his leg, Dan Shin was pissed but ultimately just shook his head. Zhuo Fan's eyes lit up, and he eased a breath, regaining his cool. Safe. Zhuo Fan probed with the utmost caution. Senior, just what happened? What realm got sealed? It's the one with the sacred mine. Dan Shin shook his head. In each Double Dragon gathering, the team battles are held in the same realm the sacred mine is being kept. It's because of the thick spiritual energy, helping disciples recover their strength and go all out. However, to be safe, if the sacred mine was in danger, the two could move it at once. So there are two ways to the mine. The first is through that battlefield, and the second is at the two Exalted's heaven-reaching pavilion. I plan to sneak in through the heaven-reaching pavilion while the two focused on the sex fights, then take the Atlas sword. It just never occurred to me heaven-reaching pavilion's path was sealed as well. This makes it so that my only way of getting in is through the battlefield. But with so many people, I would be instantly found out by the Exalted. This will make retrieving Atlas' sword impossible. Seeing him sigh, Zhuo Fan understood his plight and grew more relaxed. So, this guy couldn't even get in. It has nothing to do with me. Zhuo Fan hid a crafty smile as he asked, Senior, then you should find a way to get in, not come to me. I did not say anything to anyone about you. And with me being so glorious in my display, overshadowing the sun and stars, everyone will be waiting for me to shine brighter 3 days from now. Doing anything to me will get them alarmed.
Fine, fine.
I get it, so stop laying it so thick.
I've not come for you.
Zhuo Fan's bragging was far from finished, but Dan Qingshan cut him off. Boy, the realm would be open for the duration of the Double Dragon gathering. Once it passes, the two Coots will seal it back up. They are the only ones who could lift the seal then, preventing anyone from entering.
I have to act fast.
So I thought of you. You will be taking me inside in front of everyone's eyes. Me? Zhuo Fan started and shook his head. No way, nope. How am I supposed to take you? With your age, you look nothing like our disciples. Even if you change your looks with a pill, you still won't be able to hide that old, decrepit, and foul aura. For God's sake, you're the foul one. Dan Qingshan snapped back, then said, I already thought about that, and it's impossible.
The two Coots' eyes are sharp.
With just a change in looks, it's impossible to fool them. They can tell who you are by your aura. That's why I want to get in there, through your storage ring. Chapter 686, See the Light. Chapter 686, See the Light. Proofreader, Papatonks. What? Startled, Zhuo Fan waved his frantic hands in refusal. Out of the question.
No.
My ring can only hold items and nothing living. They could still find out even if you give me a living storage ring. Why would I suddenly change my storage ring anyway? There are so many things that can go wrong. Zhuo Fan shook his head non-stop, wanting nothing to do with this crazy plan. I gave this old Coot a map already. And since it's an item, even if the Double Dragon Manor gets their hands on it, it will not get to me. Unless Dan Qingshan runs his mouth. But the best in Western lands was that easy to catch? Please. So, Zhuo Fan helped him without worry and got him off his back, since he was holding the same prized possession. Now though, this was entirely different. Once the Double Dragon Manor discovers this, he will lose everything. It made no sense to risk it for nothing at all. So Zhuo Fan did all he could to get this old Coot as far away as possible. The best would be if they never talked again. Humph, boy, as a team leader, even if coming from a lower 3 sect, who'd believe you have such a puny storage ring? What do you take me for, a 3-year-old? No one would believe you. Dan Qingshan saw through his plan in a heartbeat. Are you aiming to get away?
Too late for that now.
Zhuo Fan sighed. Senior, you don't know this, but I am but a simple laborer back in the sect. That Hui Xiong from Beast Taming Sect was right. He fought all our elites, and with no better choice, we, from the labor office, had to step in. We're all laborers, so there's nothing we can achieve. A mere gang of laborers wipe the floor with the middle 3 sects and lower 3 sects elites? Try announcing it to the world. See how the other disciples will react. Dan Qingshan's face turned sinister. Boy, you're already in cahoots with me. So you have no choice but to help me either way. When I get the sacred sword and leave, I won't involve you anymore. But if you don't want to help me, when I get the sword, I'll tell everyone who gave me that map. Even thank you for it, ha ha ha. Dan Qingshan's smile was pure evil. Zhua Fan's face twitched, and he sighed before nodding. It seems I don't have much of a choice. I really am stuck with you. Ha ha ha, that's better. There's no way my gift was for nothing. Dan Qing laughed. Zhua Fan frowned. Senior, if I do take you, how will you get out? This time, the opponent isn't easy and won't have the time to mind other things or play with them. Then there are monitoring arrays all over the place. Once you appear, you'll be exposed. Hee, not to worry. Thanks to your words last time, I have found a way. We'll make a diversion. You fight tooth and nail in the battles, and, amidst the chaos, use the first chance you get to throw the ring in a monitoring array's blind spot. Then you just lure them away. Once you get everyone's attention, I'll just slip away and go for the sacred mine. Out of sight, out of mind. Zhua Fan's brow shook and he nodded. Wasn't that the same move he used? Then again, since it worked once, it should work again. Although, Zhua Fan's eyes roamed around in thought, putting on a heavy look. Just that, Senior, you should know that I defeated Yan Mo once. The 9 sex disciples are easy to deal with, except one. You mean Yilin? Dan Qing had already guessed what he tried to say. Zhua Fan nodded. Senior, Yilin is beyond anything I was expecting and even makes me feel like I fall short. If I throw the ring too soon, the Exalted will surely find it odd. Only when I fight Yilin will it look like an accident when I throw it. Making excuses again, boy. You sure are crafty. Dan Qing's eyes lit up. In fact, he already knew that in the Double Dragon manner, anyone's actions were under the Exalted Double Dragon's scrutiny. Though he also knew that a simple ring throw might raise suspicions, it was not enough to halt the match and investigate. They weren't that paranoid. Only when the Atlas Sword is taken away would they look into it. However, Dan Qing would be miles away at that time, leaving Zhua Fan high and dry. From the start, Dan Qing only thought of how to leave with the sword and nothing else, not even what happened to Zhua Fan afterward. If he didn't, that didn't mean Zhua Fan couldn't as well. What struck Dan Qing as shocking was how this boy already came up with a plan in this short time. The both of them knew each had their designs, yet neither one spoke. Dan Qing felt a little guilty being found out he wanted to cast him off once he was done with him. Maybe because he wanted to make up for this shame, or just to ease this sharp devil's worry, Dan Qing began to analyze his opponent. Yilin is no less strong than you. But he had yet to show all he had, and I can't make a correct assessment of his power. Whether or not you fight him, you must be very weary of that golden flame. It is truly strange. I already have a way to deal with that golden flame. The only problem is that I don't know his soul form. Zhua Fan turned heavy. I assume his soul has to be a Heaven Dragon soul as well. But how are 2 Heaven Dragon souls going to fight? I'm not sure about this matter, and wish to ask Senior to share your experience in fighting with Heaven Dragon Soul. What? He has a Heaven Dragon Soul. How do you know? Dan Qing's heart shook. He never imagined Western lands would be so rich in talent to have another Heaven Dragon Soul. Zhua Fan gave a firm nod. The Grand Decimating Dragon Ancestor can't give his inheritor the Heaven Dragon Soul? Since the guy was on his side, the least he could do was give him the same soul, right? Even if Zhua Fan hadn't seen his soul, he was more or less sure based on the guy's inheritance. But his heart only became heavier because of it. Who would know a Heaven Dragon soul better than a dragon ancestor? When the 2 Heaven Dragon souls fought, the punk would get the upper hand against him, who had no teacher. That would lead to being at a disadvantage in soul and body powers. That would mean he would lose for sure. Looking Dan Qing in the eye, Zhua Fan's entire hope for winning rested on this senior's experience. While still lacking compared to dragon ancestors, at least it was better than nothing. Senior, the master of this guy, is incredible, understanding Heaven Dragon Soul as well. Because of it, the guy has to have a complete grasp of the Heaven Dragon Soul. I hope Senior might give me so advice, at least a tie. If not, then I would easily be pushed back and soon defeated. I won't have the time to throw the ring, and Sir's plan will fail. Fine, now stop trying to blackmail me. I get what you're saying. Since you're going through such dangers for me, I will give my all to help you. Dan Shin pondered. Zhuo Fan, do you know swordsmanship? Zhuo Fan muttered something, then shook his head, just a little. Of Sacred Domain's 8 emperors, only Sword Emperor was obsessed with this for ages. While he, the demonic emperor, was known for his cunning and body strength. He knew very little about Sword Emperor. That will make my help even less useful. Dan Shin sighed. You know that my first soul is a sword, having been immersed with the sword for so many years. Only later did I form Heaven Dragon Soul and unite them to form the dragon cleaving art. The sword's appearance trembled the world, making Azure Dragon howl and the seas froth. If you knew swordsmanship, I would have guided you through this art to use Heaven Dragon Soul with it. You'd surely be unstoppable, even against that golden flame. A real shame. Zhuo Fan's face twitched, and he sighed. Senior, I mean no disrespect, but that master's understanding of Heaven Dragon Soul is far better than yours. Sir has dragon cleaving art, so does that mean he doesn't have some other mystical art as well? I fear there might not be anyone better at using Heaven Dragon Soul than him. I just want to know is how to use the Heaven Dragon Soul to fight another Heaven Dragon Soul. Heaven Dragon Soul is the strongest sword. Defeating it isn't impossible though. But that would mean your strength needs to be everything. Dan Shin turned serious as he said, Heaven Dragon Soul is strong but only as strong as the user. Otherwise, we would have the whole world under our heel with so many Heaven Dragon Souls in the Western lands. Alas, the strongest land on this continent is the central area. So while a soul is of amazing help for an ethereal stage cultivator, it is just a tool. What matters, in the end, is one's cultivation. Also, you are wrong about something. One's domain limits his understanding of the Heaven Dragon Soul. My domain is within the sword, so when the sword combined with the dragon soul, they formed the dragon cleaving art. You might say that his master is much better at using the Heaven Dragon Soul, but his domain limits that. He might not have the same understanding I have of a sword combined with the dragon soul. Everything is about perspective. Different people holding the same item would reach different conclusions and uses. No one is better in this. Zhuo Fan, I know you are wise, filled with plenty of ingenious moves. If you can just combine all that power of yours with the dragon soul, then it might not be as inferior as that senior's understanding of the dragon soul. Zhuo Fan shook and stood dumbfounded, having seen the light. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.